Chapter 1391. Different from other sects, Wanxiang City was not a sealed-off cultivation ground. Instead, it was open to all cultivators. Cultivators could freely exchange, rest, and have fun here. There were hundreds of thousands of servants in the sect, and most of them were here to serve them. Thus, all sorts of facilities were created: go clubs, restaurants, tea houses, and even brothels. As long as one wanted to and had the bookmark, everything could be bought here. It could be said to be all-inclusive. Among all these facilities, the most famous was the Chaotic Life Place, a casino personally managed by Lu Tian. Although there were many cheating methods in the cultivation world, one could always guard against them. However, divination and prophecy were impossible to guard against. Thus, a formation was specially set up to disrupt fate, which was why it was called Chaotic Life Place. The old Taoist soon arrived at the entrance of the Chaotic Life Place. The vermilion archway was tall, and people walked to and fro below. On the left was a golden toad, and on the right was a white jade pitio. There was also a stone tablet with a sentence carved on it: "Gambling changes one's fate, Letian." This was probably one of the origins of the Chaotic Life Place. The archway was bustling with people. There were many buildings in the city that servants were not allowed to enter, but this Chaotic Life Place was the only exception. Regardless of status, anyone could come and try their luck. At this juncture, the old Taoist was a little timid and paced around the archway for a while. However, he was not only here to take revenge on Li Qingshan, but also to climb up the tree that was Lu Tian. If he could gain a foothold in the sect, he would be able to fight with Li Qingshan for a long time in the future. Otherwise, just Ruan Yaozhu alone was enough to make him afraid. Thus, he steeled his heart and barged in. At the highest level of the Chaotic Life Place, bright sunlight filled the room. Lu Tian was lying on a golden rattan chair. The golden goblet in his hand was glistening, and the mellow wine was dyed golden. From here, he could see most of the buildings in the city. Lu Tian sipped the golden wine and looked at a certain place in the city, deep in thought. A female cultivator knocked on the door and entered. She wore a golden dress that dragged on the ground. She wore a golden phoenix hairpin, golden earrings, golden bracelets, and other gold accessories. However, she did not look tacky at all. Instead, she looked extraordinarily noble and bright. She looked like the empress of a great country. Compared to Lu Tian, who was lying on the reclining chair, he looked more like the second generation of a wealthy family. The female cultivator was very careful, and her footsteps were as light as a cat's. She whispered into his ear, "Senior martial brother, there's a Taoist who doesn't look like a Taoist. This monk doesn't look like this monk servant. He wants to see you, saying that he wants to thank you for your kindness. I saw that he has a nascent soul cultivation base, so I came to report to you." "I won't see you." "Yes." When the female cultivator saw that Lu Tian had no intention to continue speaking, she reluctantly left the room. A cultivator immediately came up and respectfully asked, "Senior martial sister Jean, what did senior brother Lu say?" She had regained the majesty of an empress. Her phoenix-like eyes were filled with killing intent. "Make him scram." The order was passed on a few more times, and finally it was, "All of you, beat that bald donkey out of here." This senior martial brother, although he is only a servant, he is still a nascent soul cultivator. We are only at the foundation establishment stage. How can we defeat him? So what if you're at the nascent soul realm? This is the chaotic fate place. All of you are attendants, so how could he, a mere servant, dare to retaliate? How unlucky. I was scolded by the foreman because of him. People say that, if you see a bald person, you will lose, and it is indeed true. Thus, the old Taoist was beaten up again and thrown out of the door, surrounded by the crowd. Although he didn't suffer any injuries due to his strong physique, he felt depressed and spat out a few mouthfuls of blood, which worsened his internal injuries. "Lu Tian, why don't you make him stay?" The three-legged golden toad turned into a golden-haired, golden-eyed young man, lazily lying on the edge of the hot spring. He stacked the gold bars high up, stuck out his tongue, and rolled up a piece, chewing as he mumbled. "He is just a piece of trash. He is a nascent soul cultivator, Are you angry? That Li Qingshan is really powerful. He is about to beat you twice in a row. The three-legged golden toad glanced outside, following Letian's gaze. It was the big square where the myriad phenomenon list was erected, and even Li Qingshan's name could be seen clearly. A piece of trash is not worth the bet, not even a piece of mystic would lot. Does Leng Yuan think that he is the only one who saw the essence-stealing and qi-concealing embryo art? The most important thing in gambling is courage. This kind of rat who treats cowardice as prudence and despicability as wisdom will only lower my chances of winning. That Li Qingshan was summoned as soon as he entered the heaven, so he must have contributed some miscellaneous books, and the number must be very large. This is not surprising, after all, he most likely ascended from the mortal realm, and nascent soul cultivators of the human realm don't have this kind of courage. Letian wasn't worried at all. His deduction was almost exactly the same as the reality. The three-legged golden toad swallowed all the gold. He doesn't look like someone who likes to read. The wine in the golden goblet shook slightly, and Letian said, "So he will come out soon." However, Li Qingshan stayed in the heaven for 6 days and 7 nights before coming out. In these 6 days, his ranking on the myriad phenomenon ranking rose step by step, constantly rising. Towards the end, he slowed down a lot because he had already contributed most of the most valuable books in the 5 states world, and the speed at which he recorded in the jade slips became slower and slower. However, he still climbed up without a moment's pause, surpassing another 1,000 people. Just now, he stopped, actually becoming a small legend in the myriad phenomenon sect. However, Li Qingshan felt utterly horrible right now. His head felt like it was about to split open. The drain on his soul sense from constantly recording the jade slips was only a small matter. Most importantly, he had several thousand novels churning through his head, yet he could still remember every single character and every single line of dialogue. They were all lifelike, like a dream. As he gazed at myriad phenomenon city before him, he found it unreal. He understood very well why the Clam King of Mirage Sea had gone mad. "Hey kid, you've finally come out." A familiar voice rang out, and Li Qingshan immediately saw the 9-colored deer, as well as the fresh and pleasant Ruan Yaozhu in a light green dress beside him. He immediately felt much better. "Miss Ruan, this young man greets you." "Tui, I'm about to go crazy." "Fellow Ruan, what are you doing here?" "You've already entered the sect, so you should call me senior sister," Ruan Yaozhu said with a smile. With her back to the morning sun and the morning wind, her fine black hair swayed by her ears. Li Qingshan sincerely called her senior sister. "Were you waiting for me here, senior sister? You haven't come to the 100 Herb Garden for a long time. I heard that you were summoned by the Spirit Sovereign, and you haven't come down for a few days. Are you all right?" Ruan Yaozhu said with concern. "I've made senior sister wait for a long time." Li Qingshan was moved and said, "It's fine. I just gave some books to the Spirit Sovereign to earn some contribution points and bookmarks." Ruan Yaozhu smiled. "You've already become the leader of the Wan Xiang sect. I'm afraid senior brother Lu is scared to death by you." Let him gamble." She even glanced in the direction of the chaotic life square. Li Qingshan laughed heartily. "Senior brother Lu has a big business, and he has plenty of horses and mules. Why would he care about this small amount of money?" In the chaotic life square, Letian really heaved a sigh of relief. If Li Qingshan kept improving at that speed, it wouldn't be difficult for him to become a direct disciple in 30 years. Ruan Yaozhu said, "Unfortunately, the number of books I can give is limited. Otherwise, you definitely win. Why don't you come to my 100 Herb Garden and do some things? Although it won't be that fast to increase your contribution points, it's still a stable income." Li Qingshan smiled mysteriously. "That's not necessarily true. As the saying goes, my life has its limits, but books have no limits." Lutian's heart was in his throat again. To be continued. Chapter 1392. In Ruan Yaozhu's eyes, that smile was full of vitality facing the morning sun. She couldn't help but smile. Although the Heaven's Gate was not as noisy and lively as the chaotic life place, it was still a place where people came and went. Moreover, They were all disciples who had entered the inner chamber. This scene of looking at each other and smiling, when seen by bystanders, caused them to be filled with wild and fanciful thoughts. Originally, Ruan Yaozhu was hiding in a hidden place waiting for Li Qingshan. At this moment, men and women all came up to greet her, calling out, "Senior Martial Sister Ruan." However, they were all thinking in their hearts, "Who is this man? Why is he so close to Senior Martial Sister Ruan?" Perhaps it was because Li Qingshan was here, but Ruan Yaozhu felt slightly uncomfortable. "Junior Martial Brother Li, let's go to the 100 Herb Garden." But Li Qingshan immediately noticed that the gazes of the people around him were getting more and more strange, as well as unconcealable envy. Li Qingshan followed the 9-colored deer out of Wanxiang City and arrived at a small island 1,000 miles away. The island was covered in luxuriant grass and dense green. Birds flew in the sky and it was full of vitality. It was indeed a beautiful place. However, as Li Qingshan looked around, he didn't see any decent lingji or immortal herbs. "This is the 100 Herb Garden?" "Not yet." As Ruan Yaozhu spoke, the 9-colored deer descended from the sky and landed on the small island. Li Qingshan immediately felt that this small island wasn't normal. The density of the spiritual energy was abnormally dense, almost as dense as the Chua Dragon's cave. The island was covered in layers of formations that were invisible. It was like an inescapable net, and the security was no less than that of Wanxiang City. If not for Ruan Yaozhu leading the way, he definitely wouldn't be able to take a step on this island. "Kid, you're really lucky. It's all because you helped us earn so many bookmarks." The 9-colored deer slowed down and followed the small path in the forest to a picturesque place. On the vast expanse of green grass, there was an arched door made of green vines. There were even flowers blooming on the door. Under the morning light, it was like a fairy tale world. The 9-colored deer jumped and disappeared into the arched door. Waves of colorful ripples spread out from the door like rainbows. Li Qingshan seemed to understand something and stepped into the arched door. In an instant, an incomparable world appeared in front of him. This was a heavenly grotto. The place wasn't big, only 1,000 miles in circumference. However, within this 1,000 miles, there were mountain ranges, deep valleys, and springs. There were also barren ice plains, swamps, and lakes, but they didn't seem messy at all. They were natural, as if they were in a painting, as if they were condensed from a complete world. Li Qingshan had seen a lot of things. As a man who was the god of the world, this wasn't all that surprising. However, there were countless exotic flowers and plants in this area, competing with each other in beauty under the bright sunlight, or silently in the deep valley. Even though he did not know how to identify flowers and plants, he could easily tell that these flowers and trees were precious. The density of the spiritual energy here was beyond imagination. Even Huilong's cave couldn't compare to it. And how big was Huilong's cave? He immediately understood why this island was so heavily guarded, and why those people envied him. This place was probably more important to the nature sect than Tiandu. The heavenly book was just afraid of being stolen, but it wasn't really a loss. Everything in the building was probably recorded in the old turtle's mind. Even if Tiandu was burned down by someone, it wouldn't matter. However, if this place was stolen or destroyed, it probably wouldn't recover even after 100,000 years. If one wasn't a direct disciple, how many people were qualified to have a cave like Huilong's? Ruan Yaozhu said she wanted to help him find a stable job. However, working here wouldn't just give him a stable job. Ruan Yaozhu smiled. "Welcome to the herb garden." "I really don't know what to say." Li Qingshan sighed. He had just received the unfettered heavenly book. He needed a lot of spiritual energy, and the environment here was too suitable for Qilin transformation. Ruan Yaozhu smiled. "No need to be so polite. Work hard to repay me." Li Qingshan felt that she became much more lively after coming to the herb garden. He smiled. "Okay, speak. What do you need me to do?" "There's no need to rush. I can see that you're very tired. You should rest first." "Oh, right, you've already received the heavenly book from Spirit Venerable Gue Hai, right?" "Yes." Ruan Yaozhu asked curiously, "What heavenly book?" "You don't have to say it if you don't want to." I'm cultivating the heavenly book of nature. Li Qingshan praised, Tao imitates nature. It sounds very powerful. It's not that powerful. According to Spirit Venerable, this heavenly book should be called the minor heavenly book of nature. It's still far from the true Tao of nature. It's just that it's good at taking care of these plants, so it was arranged to be in charge of the herb garden. Li Qingshan chuckled, That's such a coincidence. My heavenly book is only one word different from yours. Even the evaluation is about the same. Ruan Yaozhu's curiosity was piqued. She could no longer be gentle and considerate. She urged, Quickly tell me what heavenly book you're cultivating. I'll tell you everything. At this stage of cultivation, a cultivation technique was no longer just a cultivation technique. It was a true path. Every heavenly book was a path, and it could almost represent everything about a cultivator, such as thoughts, abilities, temperaments, and so on. Senior sister, I'm cultivating the heavenly book of freedom, or the minor heavenly book of freedom. Ruan Yaozhu was moved. Is it really fate? She blinked her eyes. I've never heard of such a heavenly book. Are you lying to me? Li Qingshan patted his chest and promised, I won't lie to you. I hope you can keep your promise. Ruan Yaozhu looked at him with a faint smile, which made Li Qingshan feel a little guilty. He said inwardly, I hope so. Ruan Yaozhu explained seriously, the heavenly book of freedom must have something to do with the great world of freedom. I don't know how effective it is. It must be very different from my nature heavenly book. It's just a coincidence that one word is the same. Many heavenly books have similar evaluations from Spirit Venerable. Li Qingshan said, How can it not be effective? This heavenly tomes cost me a total of 805 green jade slips. If it weren't for senior brother Lution's financial assistance, who knows when I would have been able to obtain it. I really have to thank senior brother Lution. But I really don't know how you can win this bet. Ruan Yaozhu sighed slightly, then said seriously, If you need sapphire tags, I can lend them to you. But work and contribution have rules. I can give you more sapphire tags as a reward, but contribution is related to the whole nature sex rules. Big is big, small is small. If you have it, you have it. No matter who it is, I won't show favoritism. Don't look down on me. I, Li Qingshan, am not a man who lives off women. Don't worry about me. I have a plan, and I'll make Lution lose everything. What do you mean by living off women? Who's worried about you? Chapter 1393. Ruan Yaozhu pouted. Li Qingshan's words were far too frivolous and flirtatious. No matter how good her temper was, she could not put up with it. If it were not for the fact that his eyes were clear and devoid of any evil thoughts, she would have chased him out of the 100-herb garden immediately. Li Qingshan laughed aloud. He did not mind at all. He was no longer the inexperienced Li Qingshan who would fall in love at first sight when he saw a beauty. Actually, he was not lustful at all. He was just used to joking around. He had always been good at mocking and had a good mouth. Now, he was complacent and did not know how to restrain himself. Suddenly, he felt a pain in his chest. He was thrown into the air by the 9-colored deer. Li Qingshan flipped in the air and rubbed his chest. He was not angry. He asked, Why did you hit me? There was actually no room for her to dodge. She really had undergone the 5th heavenly tribulation. The 9-colored deer was surprised too. Originally, it wanted to teach him a small lesson, but he was actually unscathed. His body really was tough. It raised its antlers proudly. Nothing good comes out of a filthy mouth. Ruan Yaozhu said, Junior brother Li, don't be so rude in the future. Li Qingshan rubbed his head. I know. Ruan Yaozhu could not bear to blame him. She thought, he doesn't have any evil thoughts. I've been thinking too much. She pointed at him and asked, Do you see that hill? Li Qingshan nodded. The hill was not particularly tall. It made him think of Crouching Ox Hill. It just happened to be in the center of the 100-herb garden. There were not a lot of flowers and plants on it. There was only a single towering tree. The leaves were all faint gold, forming a golden canopy. He could tell with a single glance that it was something extraordinary. He could not help but ask, What tree is that? That's a Bodhi tree with golden leaves. It can calm the mind and inspire inspiration. It's most beneficial for cultivation. That's where I usually rest. You can rest under that tree. When Ruan Yaozhu reached there, she also felt that it was rather strange. That's not a good idea. Li Qingshan was not a reckless person. That seemed to be a place for a man and a woman. If they were alone, then so be it, but there just happened to be many cultivators working in the 100-herb garden. From the moment he entered, many gazes landed on him. He owed Ruan Yaozhu. He didn't want to hurt her reputation. Ruan Yaozhu angrily said, "What's not good about it? Whenever martial brothers and sisters come to visit, I always receive them there." She also felt that she was trying to cover something up. "I'm going to patrol. If you don't want to go, then forget it." Riding on the 9-colored deer, he soared into the sky. Li Qingshan shook his head and climbed up the hill. When he arrived under the golden leaf Bodhi tree, he saw that the thick tree trunk was made up of many intertwined branches. It looked like a banyan tree. There was a bamboo mat under the tree and a small table with a tea set on it. The bamboo mat was as green as new, the small table was as red as a heavy date, and the tea set was like cracked ice. It was extremely simple and elegant. The thin shade of the tree was actually suffused with a faint golden color, swaying along with the breeze. It flickered with millions of specks of golden light. Li Qingshan came under the tree and immediately felt his mind clear up. His head no longer hurt, and even his divine sense became sharper. He sat down cross-legged casually. He wasn't in a hurry to cultivate, so he first sorted out his experiences after coming to the mortal realm, and then he gradually felt sleepy and yawned loudly. He smiled in realization. This feeling was something he hadn't felt for a long time, so he simply lay down on the cool bamboo mat and fell asleep. Ruan Yaozhu patrolled around the 100-herb garden and dealt with some trivial matters. She felt slightly uneasy. Sigh, he's actually sleeping, really? The 9-colored deer looked back at the golden leaf Bodhi tree and said, "Blockhead, oh blockhead, you're inviting a wolf into the house." Ruan Yaozhu smiled and said, "Didn't you say that he's been a good person since he was young and can't even bear to step on ants? That's exactly why it's so bad. Regardless of whether he's a good person or not, he's still a man. This kid is obviously a playboy and a playboy. You have to be wary of him in the future to avoid a disaster of love." Ruan Yaozhu blushed and said, "What are you talking about? I just don't want him to lose to senior brother Lutian. That's 2,000 green jade lots. How can he afford to lose?" The 9-colored deer said, "This is too scary. You've known Lutian for more than 1,000 years, but you've only known this kid for less than 10 days. Could it be that you've been bewitched? Could it be that this kid has the bloodline of the 9-tailed fox?" Ruan Yaozhu was slightly stunned. Everything was so logical that she didn't think too deeply about the reason behind it. Perhaps she was moved by the Qilin's benevolence, or perhaps she didn't want to see a good person fall into a hopeless situation, or perhaps she wanted to take a gamble with Lutian who had never listened to her for the past 1,000 years. It was difficult to distinguish all the reasons, but there was no need to care so much. Thank you for your reminder, but I'm wholeheartedly cultivating, so how can I fall into the trap of love? If junior brother Li really has other intentions, please help me chase him out of the 100-herb garden. If he doesn't have other intentions, do you think I'm that unreserved? Okay, I'll help you keep an eye on him. Hee, with my blockhead's character and appearance, I don't believe that he won't be tempted. You deserve a beating. Li Qingshan was in a deep sleep and still didn't know that he had been targeted. Even if he knew, he wouldn't care. He had just stepped into the 6 paths of reincarnation and was preparing to face demon god Qiongqi. He was in high spirits and his fighting spirit was high, so how could he have the mood to be in the mood for romance? Furthermore, she was so nice to him, so how could he have thoughts of sleeping with her and ruin her cultivation? This was not in line with his principle of revenge must be repaid. Although he was asleep, there was still a trace of consciousness left in his mind, and he cast it into the 5 continents world. From the perspective of the world god, the vast ocean, the various continents, humans, ghosts, and demons were like a magnificent painting unfolding in front of his eyes. Although it wasn't as exquisite as the 100-herb garden, It was truly a world that belonged to him. The key to winning this bet was here. Li Qingshan knew himself well. Although he was known as a novelist, he didn't have any talent in writing novels. He could only copy a few books, but it wasn't a long-term plan. However, books were written by people, and even if he didn't have the talent, it didn't mean that others didn't. There were hundreds of millions of people in the 5 continents world, and there was a huge time difference with the mortal realm. He could organize tens of thousands of people to write, and it would be impossible for him to gain nothing. As long as there was a 1% or even 1,000 chance of success, it would mean an endless supply of contribution points and bookmarks. Even if Letian used up all his schemes, he wouldn't have thought that he would have a world of his own, and that his thoughts could enter and leave it freely. The world itself couldn't directly provide any cultivation resources, but as long as it was used properly, its value was beyond imagination. Perhaps this was what Zhuo Long wanted to do but didn't manage to do. Guihai Lingzuan used the rules of the entire Myriad Appearance sect to satisfy his little hobby, while Li Qingshan could use his identity as the world god to make the entire world assist him in his cultivation. This was the power and prestige of a cultivator. As for winning this small bet, it was just something he did in passing, and he didn't really care about it. 30 years was still a long time, and if it didn't work out, he could still renege on the debt. The most important thing now was to obtain a decent abode of immortals. Ruan Yaozhu could be considered a kind master, but although the 100-herb garden was good, and no matter how wonderful the Bodhi tree was, he was still living under someone else's roof, and it wasn't a place for a real man to love for a long time. To be continued. Chapter 1394. However, while the idea was wonderful, he still needed to think about how it would work. He couldn't just send down an oracle from the heavens and summon everyone to write novels, right? There had to be someone in charge of organizing people, spreading the news, establishing a complete system, and ensuring its normal operation. With a thought, he already had a suitable candidate. He then descended into a courtyard. Under the large apricot tree, the moonlight flowed like water and the shadows of the tree swayed. The former king of Southern Yu, Qian Lingji, was playing chess with someone. Southern Yu no longer existed. He was now the human king of the new continent. Opposite the chessboard was a banyan tree in a potted plant. Its roots were thick and strong. Its aerial roots formed the shape of a palm, holding a black chess piece and landing it on the chessboard. Qian Lingji sighed. I didn't expect that after going through such a disaster, fellow Taoist chess skills did not deteriorate, but improved instead. The banyan tree king said bluntly, "It's because you've been playing too stinky." Qian Lingji smiled and sighed. You wouldn't have said that in the past. The banyan tree king said, "The past is the past, the present is the present. Let's play another game." Qian Lingji suddenly turned around and saw a faint silhouette in the watery moonlight, condensing into Li Qingshan's appearance. He cupped his fists. Fellow Taoists, it's been a long time. Qian Lingji hurriedly stood up to welcome them, casually brushing the chessboard away, and jokingly said, "Supreme Deity, what brings you here?" "I have something to ask of you, let me explain it slowly." As a result, Li Qingshan told him everything about the myriad phenomenon sect's spirit sovereign Guihai. He even hid nothing about his bet with Letian. Qian Lingji said, "I didn't expect the human realm to be so treacherous. Fellow Taoist, don't worry, leave this to me. I won't let Letian get too full of himself." The banyan tree king said, "I have nothing better to do and was looking for something to do, so I'll lend you a hand." "That's great." Li Qingshan smiled. One of them was from the royal family, while the other was the king of the demons. They were the best at organizing, so it would be easy to leave this matter to them. "Many thanks. When this is done, I'll definitely reward you according to your contributions, so that you won't work for nothing. It's just a small matter. There's no need to thank me. However, I still have one more thing. When will this 5 continents world become bigger?" Qian Lingji was also close to the 4th heavenly tribulation. This was undoubtedly what he was most concerned about. Li Qingshan closed his eyes and sensed for a moment. He saw a star gradually growing bigger in the vast void. The void-swallowing beast had already traveled very far. He opened his eyes again. So, This also meant that he had to remove the sky-climbing vine from the human realm before Deep Blue Lil Fatty arrived at the New World. However, if he did that, Little and the others would be in danger, and their path of retreat would be cut off. So before that, he had to find a new cave and bring them over. Qian Lingji said, "Then I'm relieved. There is a school of novels in the 9 states, so this matter is not without reason, but it still needs some time to plan." Yes, time passes quickly in the mortal realm. I can wait. I'm originally a disciple of the school of novels, otherwise, I wouldn't have thought of this. If you need any help, just let me know. Don't worry, I won't disappoint you. Li Qingshan discussed with them a little more about how to handle this matter before taking his leave. Just as Qian Lingji was in thought, the Banyan Tree King had already restored the chessboard that had been messed up. He said, "It's your turn." Qian Lingji revealed a helpless expression and shook his head. "Tree King, oh Tree King. You weren't like this before. It's like you've become a different tree. Hurry up. Once I beat you, we'll get to work on this." Li Qingshan slowly woke up under the golden-leafed Bodhi tree. He stretched. A gentle breeze blew past, and the golden leaves rustled. Ruan Yaozhu was nowhere to be seen. He did not get up. Instead, he rested his head on his arms and crossed his legs. He placed the jade slip that recorded the heavenly tome of freedom between his eyebrows and began to comprehend it. Perhaps it really was because their personalities were compatible, but the process of comprehension was extremely smooth. The cultivation method was extensive, profound, and wondrous, but it could not stop him from having the 9 transformations of the demonic and divine as his foundation, the spirit turtle transformation's ability to project, and the ape demon transformation's freedom of movement. All of these served as great assistance to him. 2 layers of light lit up on him at the same time. At first, they suppressed one another before gradually merging together, condensing into a profound light that changed unpredictably. It enveloped Li Qingshan, reflecting his face. At times, it was vicious and terrifying like a demon, and at other times, it was gentle like a woman. Afterwards, the 2 faces gradually merged together, and the profound light gradually receded into his dantian. He had only comprehended 20 to 30% of it, but he had already harmonized the Extreme King's records of scriptures and the Extreme King's records of world destruction. He gathered the thoughts of life and death before transforming them into the heavenly tome of freedom. Li Qingshan suddenly opened his eyes and looked at the shattered sunlight flickering through the golden crown of the tree. He muttered to himself, "Only the savior of the world has the right to destroy the world. Only the destroyer of the world has the power to save the world." With a boom, the profound light froze. A half-transparent infant appeared in Li Qingshan's dantian. It was extremely similar to Li Qingshan in appearance. It was the soul nascence that all great cultivators possessed. Originally, he thought it would be impossible for him to refine a soul nascence now that he had embarked on the demonic path. He never thought the heavenly tome of freedom would be so impressive, actually allowing him to reverse his demon heart and refine a soul nascence. He truly was worthy of being the great freedom demon lord. The path of the great freedom was not a simple demonic path. It completely surpassed the regular concepts of good and evil, establishing a great path that everyone yearned for. The Buddha said, "Everyone can become a Buddha," which also meant everyone can become a demon. What everyone sought was freedom, to do as they pleased, to do as they pleased. Humans were probably much closer to demons than Buddhas. Could it be said that the great freedom demon lord understood the human heart better than the Buddha? Various demonic thoughts were born from the heart. A single misstep could become a demonic obstacle. If mortals wanted to succeed, they needed to be careful, to bow, to reflect, and to control themselves. Once they made a mistake, their entire life would be wasted, and they might even lose their lives. Moreover, it was a huge matter like cultivation. Terrifying power was contained within the body, and the mind was constantly changing. Who dared to be free and do as they pleased? If they let all kinds of thoughts run wild, a moment of carelessness would lead to chi deviation, and their souls would scatter. They wouldn't even be able to enter the cycle of reincarnation. Therefore, this path was what everyone yearned for, and everyone yearned for it. Instead, it was even more difficult than the strict Buddhist path of cultivation. Very few people could walk this path. Li Qingshan rubbed his belly. It's like I'm pregnant, huh? He couldn't help but laugh proudly at this exquisite metaphor. You've already comprehended the heavenly tome of freedom. Ruan Yaozhu sensed the commotion and came over to take a look. The heavenly tome of all nature was extremely profound. Back then, she had spent several years comprehending the heavenly tome of nature, which was already considered very fast. He only slept under the tree for a while, and when he woke up, it only took him 10 minutes to transform his cultivation into a heavenly tome. Could it be that he was really a rare genius in cultivation? This was not only because Li Qingshan had the foundation of the Extreme Emperor's record of world destruction and the Extreme Emperor's record of the world, as well as the powerful assistance of the 9 transformations of the demonic and celestial. It wasn't just because their hearts and natures were compatible. Although the heavenly tome of freedom was difficult and dangerous, it also had one advantage, and that was its speed. It was so fast that even the cultivator himself felt afraid, so fast that he could lose control at any time and become chi deviation. Chapter 1395. Ruan Yaozhu said, Junior Marshal Brother, do you know the cloning technique? I guess I know a thing or two. Take this fractal shadow form technique and comprehend it. With your comprehension, you should be able to grasp it quickly. Nine-colored deer said, this phantasm technique needs to be exchanged with a green jade lot in the sky. Li Qingshan smiled and accepted it calmly. He closed his eyes and began to comprehend. Ruan Yaozhu looked at him with great interest. She did not expect that he would immediately start to comprehend it. Although this fractal shadowization technique was only a Tao technique, it was not easy for a layman to master it freely. After a while, Li Qingshan opened his eyes. His nascent soul flashed, and a faint silhouette emerged from his body. It was like an invisible shadow, full of qi. Ruan Yaozhu was surprised. You really didn't know the cloning technique before? I know a thing or two, just a thing or two. Li Qingshan answered vaguely. Although moon reflection wasn't a spell but an innate ability, it was far beyond the reach of this phantasm technique. This clone is really weak. I'm afraid it won't be able to do any hard work. It's better not to have it. He sensed that this shadow clone couldn't be too far away from him and was very weak. It didn't even have 1% of his strength. This was to be expected. Although the myriad sex spells were mysterious, this was after all the human world. All spells were restricted by the laws of heaven and earth. You don't know, but most of the work in the herb garden doesn't require a lot of power, but it requires exquisite cooperation. Ruan Yaozhu smiled and took out a jade scroll. This is some of my experiences. You'll understand after reading it. Nine-colored deer sighed. Hey, Softwood, you're really generous. If it wasn't for the fact that you helped us win, I wouldn't have let you see this jade scroll for nothing. I understand now. Every spirit herb has a different spirituality and radiates different qi. They affect each other and even restrain each other. It contains the principle of the 5 elements reinforcing and restraining each other. The Tao of yin and yang's changes requires a deep understanding of the laws involved and the overall situation at all times to be able to do this job well. Li Qingshan skimmed through it and understood. Although the spirit qi in this 100-herb garden was dense, the spirit herbs planted were too densely packed after all. The green dragon bamboo hated metal the most, but the sharp-tooth grass needed to be fertilized with iron slag. The golden leaf Bodhi tree beside him had roots that covered the entire hill. There was no room for any other plants to grow. As for some plants, they couldn't get close to humans, so they had to use their clones. Furthermore, many plants and vegetation are extremely dangerous, even to cultivators. If they aren't careful and are poisoned, their lives will be in danger. I don't know how many doppelgangers you can create. This will determine the efficiency of your job as well as your pay. Ruan Yaozhu saw that he had comprehended the fractal shadow technique so quickly. He wanted to test his methods. Let me try. Li Qingshan's interest was also piqued. He closed his eyes again. Activating his nascent soul, his mind divided into 2, 2 into 4, 4 into 8, and so on and so forth, he used the fractal shadow technique. Yuan Yaozhu saw shadows walk out from Li Qingshan's body. In a short while, there were more than 100 shadows under the tree. She was also surprised. Ordinary nascent soul cultivators could create 12 to 20 doppelgangers. That was already a lot. She thought, the great freedom heavenly demon has always been known for its transformations. Could it be that the heavenly book of freedom has a special effect on this technique? Senior martial sister, are there enough doppelgangers? Li Qingshan didn't think that there was anything great about it. These shadow doppelgangers were all weak. Even if they were added together, they wouldn't be as strong as a mirror doppelganger. They could only be used for farm work. Of course, there are more doppelgangers. The more doppelgangers you have, the more spirit herbs you can take care of. But can you control so many doppelgangers? There doesn't seem to be a problem. With a thought from Li Qingshan, all of the shadow doppelgangers moved. First, they lined up neatly like an army. Then, they stacked on top of each other until they reached the depths of the tree. In the end, they scattered again. It was a mess. Yuan Yaozhu originally thought that he couldn't control them, but she saw these doppelgangers. Some were hunched like old men, some were arrogant like generals. They imitated the appearance of all living beings and had a lot of fun. She couldn't help but sigh at the vastness of the world. There really were many unparalleled geniuses. However, Li Qingshan said, I've only just grasped the basics of the heavenly book of freedom. My comprehension of this technique isn't too deep either. Otherwise, I would be able to create even more doppelgangers. Furthermore, the spirit turtle transformation was also suppressed to the 4th layer. Otherwise, the number and agility of the doppelgangers would be even greater. I'll take you to get the tools. Yuan Yaozhu shook her head. She no longer doubted whether he had the ability to do this job well. Even she did not have this ability when she was at the same cultivation realm back then. He was basically sent by the heavens to help him take care of the 100 herb garden. They arrived in a valley. There were many large storehouses here. Along the way, Yuan Yaozhu rode the deer in front while Li Qingshan walked behind her. There were over 100 shadow doppelgangers following behind them. It was like they were on a parade, attracting the attention of everyone. Yuan Yaozhu thought about it and opened a storehouse. There were not farming tools like hoes and scissors inside, but puppets arranged neatly. Some were large, some were small, some were metal, some were wood. They all varied in appearance. There were some special spiritual herbs that even the doppelgangers were unable to approach. They needed special puppets. Can you split your consciousness and control some puppets? What's so difficult about that? Li Qingshan smiled. In that instant, his soul sense spread out, and half of the puppets in the storehouse actually began to move. However, their movements were rather stiff, not as smooth as when he controlled the shadow doppelgangers. This caused Yuan Yaozhu to be incomparably shocked. She hurriedly said, all right. There's no need for so much. I already know your level. I can arrange a job for you. Li Qingshan also heaved a sigh of relief. This was also the limit for him. However, he still felt somewhat dissatisfied. There was always a feeling of emptiness, as if he had only used 40 to 50% of his strength, or even 2 to 3% of it. Regardless of whether it was the Book of Freedom or the Qilin longevity strategy, they were only at the entry level. In fact, they couldn't even be considered entry level. This dragged down the other fiend god transformations by a level. The key was that he had not undergone the 4th heavenly tribulation. He was clearly only one step away, yet he was stuck here. However, he was not in a hurry. He had already vaguely seen a glimmer of hope. This 100 herb garden was very suitable for cultivating the Qilin transformation, and the Book of Freedom was also deeply in line with his temperament. No matter which one he broke through, he would undergo the 4th heavenly tribulation. And once he crossed this step, the sea and the sky would be wide open, and his cultivation would increase by leaps and bounds. This was already the final dormancy. That glimmer of hope was precisely from the open door of the path of the 9 heavens. In the vast sea and sky, there would definitely be storms and thunder. When he thought that in the future he might not have the opportunity to stay in such a beautiful garden and enjoy such peaceful and quiet time. Even he felt a little emotional. Senior sister. I will remember your kindness. Li Qingshan's eyes were burning. Ruan Yaozhu was stunned for a moment. That gaze was full of cherishing, but it had nothing to do with love. It gave her a strange feeling. Although he was right in front of her, she had a feeling that she could not touch him, as if he could fly away at any time. As long as you work hard, it will be considered as repaying me. P.S. I've been working hard these few days. Every day, I walked down from the 16th floor and climbed back up. In between, I skipped 2,000 times. My arms seem to have improved a little. Nothing can stop us, right? This month, I won't write a speech asking for votes. Everyone, vote as you see fit. Finally, I'll send the first sentence of a novel that I like very much. Kilimanjaro is a mountain with an altitude of 19,710 feet. It is covered with snow all year round. It is said to be the highest mountain in Africa. The West High Peak is called the Maasai's Ochioyi, or God's Temple. Near the West High Peak, there is the already dried and frozen corpse of a leopard. No one has ever explained what the leopard was looking for in such a cold place. Chapter 1396. Of course. The two looked at each other and smiled. In this 100-herb garden, there was a tacit understanding between them. Cultivators met strangers and helped each other, but there was no need to love each other, because it was better to forget each other in Jianghu. Senior sister Ruan, this is? A voice broke the peaceful atmosphere. The two of them looked back and saw a man floating over. His long black hair was tied with a headband, and he wore a sky-blue robe that fluttered in the wind. In his right hand was a scroll of poetry, and he looked like a refined and handsome scholar. Ruan Yaozhu's smile immediately disappeared, and she returned to her dull expression. Junior brother Shen, this is Li Qingshan, junior brother Li. He just joined Wanxiang sect and will be working in 100-herb garden. Oh, then I'd like to ask for guidance. Shen Yushu's clear eyes swept over the badge on Li Qingshan's chest, and then the many shadows. Just entered the sect and already an official disciple. He must be the first in the entrance exam. Junior brother Li's cultivation is indeed extraordinary. No wonder you can gain senior sister Ruan's favor. Li Qingshan immediately felt a subtle hostility, purely from the instinct of a male animal. He thought, it seems that no matter how high one's cultivation is, it is difficult for humans to transcend animal instincts. Eating, drinking, men and women, human desires. Even immortals need to take bait, eat pills, eat spirits and drink qi. It seems that the way of eating is impossible. The feelings between men and women are also the same. This guy is obviously Ruan Yaozhu's pursuer. But Ruan Yaozhu obviously did not need a pursuer, and he had no intention of becoming one of her pursuers. Otherwise, he would be a bit embarrassed if she treated him so well. He cupped his hands and said, I still have not asked for senior brother Shen's name? Shen Yushu. Shen Yushu bowed slightly in a refined and courteous manner, but that was the courtesy of a superior to a subordinate, the modesty of a noble young master to a village man. The badge on his chest symbolizing the status of an inner disciple shone brightly under the sunlight. Li Qingshan narrowed his eyes. Even though he had no intentions towards Ruan Yaozhu, his competitive spirit was aroused. He thought again, forget it, if he is always so competitive, when will he be able to cultivate the Qilin transformation? In any case, Ruan Yaozhu is not interested in him, so why should I be jealous? In other words, if Ruan Yaozhu was really interested in this Shen Yushu, he might not be able to hold himself back from making a move. He laughed and said, good name. Senior Martial Brother Shen, it's my first time here. Please take care of me in the future. Well said. I'm the one in charge of all the chores in the 100-herb garden. In the blink of an eye, 100 years have passed. If there's anything you don't understand, you can ask me. I'll definitely tell you everything I know. Chen Yushu said very generously and turned to Ruan Yaozhu to complain, Senior sister, why did you come to such a messy place? Leave these trivial matters to me. I'll let junior apprentice brother Li take care of the area 15 kilometers around the gold leaf Bodhi tree. I'm going to cultivate. Ruan Yaozhu only spoke a few words before the 9-colored deer's hind hooves kicked off and flew away, leaving behind Li Qingshan and Qin Yushu to look at each other in dismay. Once Ruan Yaozhu left, Qin Yushu's expression immediately became a bit more reserved. Junior brother Li, have you done similar work before? This job is not as easy as you think. Do you know what I'm thinking? Li Qingshan took out the posture of a phoenix and was even more reserved than him. In a split second, the two men were like two male peacocks spreading their tails. Qin Yushu frowned imperceptibly. The Wanxiang sect's middle class was very clear. A mere disciple who had just entered the sect would not be able to defeat him. If it was another place, he could even find a reason to teach him a lesson. However, this was Ruan Yaozhu's 100-herb garden. Junior apprentice brother Li, the 100-herb garden is the foundation of Wanxiang sect. Every flower and leaf here is the result of senior sister Ruan's painstaking efforts. If you don't handle it properly, the consequences will be unthinkable. Some careless disciples not only didn't get any benefits in the 100-herb garden, but instead had many merits deducted and a large number of bookmarks deducted. Some were even punished. They were directly kicked out of Wanxiang sect. Li Qingshan said, "Please be at ease, senior apprentice brother. I will slowly explore." Qin Yushu laughed. "All right then, you can slowly explore it." He turned around and left, thinking, truly a reckless man who doesn't know what's good for him. The work in the 100-herb garden is exquisite and complicated. When you make a mistake, let's see how you explain yourself. Senior sister Ruan can't blame me for not warning you. Li Qingshan stood in place and thought for a bit. He shook his head and laughed. He didn't take it to heart and started to look for tools and fertilizer in the storehouse. There were dozens of plants in a 10-li radius around the golden leaf Bodhi tree. Each had different characteristics and needed different care. However, with the jade slip Ruan Yaozhu gave him and the spirit turtle's powerful analysis and deduction ability, he didn't find it troublesome. In the lake in the depths of the 100-herb garden, there was a secluded cave. Ruan Yaozhu sat on the stone bed and sighed. Junior apprentice brother Qin is becoming more and more unreasonable. Qin Yushu's thoughts were very clear. It was just that he had been carefully concealing it for 100 years and worked very hard. She couldn't act out just because of other people's thoughts. However, as his cultivation got higher and higher these years, gradually approaching the 5th heavenly tribulation, he almost became the housekeeper of the 100-herb garden. His thoughts became clear, making her a little unhappy. Not far away, a green vine-hanging basket swayed back and forth. A pair of slender jade legs hung down. Her snow-white skin had gorgeous and elegant patterns. Her calves swayed lightly. Can't be helped. He also cultivates the heavenly book of nature. He can help you save a lot of trouble and focus on cultivation. Pretend you didn't see it. He, who told you to be so charming? Ruan Yaozhu felt a little strange. Then why are you so harsh to junior apprentice brother Li? Whether it was the time they knew each other, status, cultivation, or even sincerity, Li Qingshan couldn't be compared to Qin Yushu. The hanging basket suddenly stopped and a young girl jumped down. She was naked and her snow-white body seemed to be shrouded in rainbows. A pair of gentle deer eyes were embedded on her beautiful face. She stared at Ruan Yaozhu and said, "This isn't harsh. He is very dangerous. Believe me, stay away from him. A guy who cultivates the unrestrained heavenly devil path is definitely not a good person." Ruan Yaozhu seemed to not hear it and propped up her chin. If junior apprentice brother Li can cross the 4th heavenly tribulation with the Qilin bloodline, he might be able to replace junior apprentice brother Chen's position. He is really too annoying right now. Look, what did I say? The 9-colored young girl supported her forehead with her hand and had a helpless expression as if she was looking at her own daughter who was about to be seduced by this bad boy. She put her hands on her waist and righteously said, "If that boy dares to have any disloyal thoughts towards you, immediately drive him out of the 100-herb garden. There is no room for discussion." "All right, can you put on some clothes?" "I don't want to." Li Qingshan didn't hurry to get to work. Instead, he strolled in the field. Sometimes he sniffed a flower and sometimes he touched a tree. He was like a tiger patrolling its territory, wanting to leave its scent everywhere. Now that he personally experienced it, he felt the extraordinariness of this 100-herb garden even more. Every exotic flower and rare grass had their own living environment, but they were all gathered in this small 100-herb garden, thriving together. When he thought about it carefully, it was simply an inconceivable matter. This 100-herb garden was simply like a complete life form, and also like the crystallization of the entire nature, extremely perfect and exquisite. In the end, who designed all of this? Spirit Venerable Guihai, who was good at deduction, the two mysterious sect masters, or the Tian Shu elder who was above the 9 heavens? Chen Yushu looked at him from afar and thought that he was at a loss. Arrogant person, let's see what you can do. Obediently come and beg me. Unknowingly, Li Qingshan arrived in front of a clump of sharp-toothed grass. These bone-white slender blades of grass were indeed as sharp as teeth. They were dense and slender like a forest, and they even emitted a strange fragrance. It wasn't the fragrance of flowers, but it instead made him think of the taste of the human heart. It was rich and tempting, and he couldn't help but walk closer. Chen Yushu sneered in his heart. Idiot, the sharp-toothed grass feeds on flesh and blood. Once it gets close, it will suddenly grow and launch an attack. This clump of sharp-toothed grass has been planted for tens of thousands of years. Rashly approaching it, even a gold core cultivator's life would be in danger. If you don't know what's good for you, you will suffer. The sharp-toothed grass suddenly grew crazily, reaching a length of more than 10 zhang, and they all rushed towards Li Qingshan. However, the sharp-toothed grass gently twined around Li Qingshan's body, without the slightest bit of fierceness. Li Qingshan waved his hand, and it slowly shrank back to its original state. Chen Yushu was stunned. What's going on? Chapter 1397. In an instant, the entire world had changed. Originally, in his eyes, those flowers and plants were all the same. It was just that they were a little bigger, and I was a little smaller, you were a little redder, and I was a little greener. Now, even if it was the same species of flowers and trees, because of the length of years, the difference in time, and the color of the petals, there were clear differences. Even if they all had one nose and 2 eyes, there were still thousands of people with thousands of faces, and there was absolutely no mistake. One could even see their respective temperaments, and everything they had experienced from these faces. This was no longer a lonely wilderness, but a bustling human world. The sharp-fanged grass in front of him was like a group of bloodthirsty soldiers, longing for the nourishment of flesh and blood, but now they longed for metal powder to maintain their weapons. The black fir tree not far away was like an old man who had run from the cold to the tropics, troubled by the heat here. And those bright and beautiful 3-leafed flame flowers were the exact opposite, complaining that this place was too cold. There was no need to carefully observe or judge according to the atlas books. When Li Qingshan walked past them, he would hear all kinds of complaints and requests. Li Qingshan curled his lips. So troublesome. With his hands behind his back, he turned around and walked back to the hill, sitting down under the golden-leafed Bodhi tree. Shen Yushu laughed in his heart. How is it, you don't know where to start? At the same time, Ruan Yaozhu was also observing him and couldn't help but worry if he was competent for this job. The 9-colored deer said, Don't worry, this kid has the Qilin bloodline, the jade slip you gave him, and so many clones, how can he not do it? Shen Yushu is going to be disappointed. Ruan Yaozhu smiled. Qilin. I have never seen it with my own eyes, but I heard that all living beings will feel close to them, especially beasts, especially deer. So what? We have spirituality precisely to surpass our instincts. Ruan Yaozhu touched her lips and smiled. So you deliberately criticized him a little more to balance this instinct? None of your business. After Li Qingshan investigated the situation of the people, he did not immediately start work. Instead, he continued to comprehend the unfettered heavenly book, inhaling and exhaling the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. The nascent soul in his body gradually solidified, becoming more and more like him. With a thought, his nascent soul flew into the small world in his body. In an instant, it was as if heaven and earth had just been born. In this world formed by earth, fire, wind, and water, there was originally only heartless plants. But now, there was an additional little person, who opened his clear eyes and looked up at the sky. His eyes met with Li Qingshan's. At the same time, he saw himself. From this moment on, this world finally had meaning. This change surprised Li Qingshan, and he immediately activated the 9 transformations of demons and gods. With the world as the cradle and heaven and earth as the furnace, he would nurture and train this little person. There was sunshine, rain, and dew. There was also wind, frost, rain, and snow. This little person's heart was mixed with bitterness and joy. He had to be vigilant in times of peace. One had to find joy in bitterness. He grew up alone in this small world. From crawling all over the ground, he gradually grew up, and then he began to learn how to walk. Every day, every moment, there were new changes. Li Qingshan was activating the 9 transformations of demons and gods and the Book of Freedom at the same time. They were originally 2 completely different cultivation systems, but at this moment, there was a surprising compatibility. He used the small world to nourish the nascent soul, and at the same time, he used the nascent soul to feed back to the small world. This was especially true for nascent souls. The benefits they received were simply too great. The small world was already far beyond Li Qingshan's current level, and it had extraordinary power. At this moment, he was using all the accumulation of the 9 transformations of demons and gods to support the cultivation of the Book of Freedom. Coupled with the rich spirit qi in the 100 Herb Garden, the nascent soul grew at a rapid pace. No matter how strong a nascent soul was, it would always look like a baby, as clear as a newborn, curled up in a mother's belly. Only after going through 4 heavenly tribulations would the nascent soul and soul formation stage change. However, Li Qingshan's nascent soul was really growing, turning into the appearance of a 3- or 4-year-old child. Perhaps it was influenced by the various transformations of demons and gods, or perhaps the Book of Freedom was unusual in the first place. The expression on the child's face changed, as if shrouded in a layer of mist. He stood on the ground with his hands down, as if he had been standing there since ancient times, bearing the sorrow, joy, and anger of all humans. There were no spells in the unfettered heavenly tome, only pure Tao. This Tao was different from the ordinary Tao of cultivation. It was neither a pure heart and few desires, nor was it a supreme forgetfulness of emotions. Instead, it required extreme emotions and desires, to love more deeply, to hate more wildly, to be more furious, and to be more sorrowful than mortals. Love causes life, hate causes death. Anger destroys heaven and earth, sorrow causes the whole world to cry. Because the Dharma understood impermanence, it sought emptiness in all 4 directions. Because it saw the world as a house of fire, as a sea of bitterness, it wanted to transcend, reach the other shore, and save the common people. If someone didn't seek the other shore, but willingly danced in the sea of bitterness, it would be the Tao of the devil. If someone understood impermanence, but didn't seek detachment, compassion, or save the common people, but instead turned into impermanence, mocking the common people, only seeking freedom, it would be the sky demon. The Tao of the sky demon was the Tao of impermanence. After Li Qingshan understood this, his nascent soul grew again, becoming closer to the appearance of a 7- or 8-year-old, becoming more and more stable. Unknowingly, he was completely immersed in cultivation, forgetting the passage of time. In the blink of an eye, 49 days had passed. The responsible field that Ruan Yaozhu gave him was left unattended. Although the 100 Herb Garden was full of spiritual energy and had its own great circulation, and the exotic flowers and plants had strong vitality, so they wouldn't die, it was inevitable that they would become wilted and sparse. One had to know that even if the growth of spiritual plants slowed down a little, it would be a huge loss, let alone in this kind of situation. Shen Yushu came to report to Ruan Yaozhu several times, wanting to drive Li Qingshan out of the 100 Herb Garden. Ruan Yaozhu, on the other hand, used the excuse of cultivating in seclusion and refused to see him. The cultivators working in the 100 Herb Garden discussed spiritedly, the tranquil and peaceful atmosphere was affected, and under Shen Yushu's instigation, some people became even more indignant. They could only cultivate for a while after working hard every day and enjoy some of the benefits of the 100-herb garden. If they wanted to concentrate on cultivating for a while, they would have to ask someone to help look after it, and they would have to return it later. Who would sit under the golden leaf Bodhi tree for dozens of days, not doing any work at all. They were prepared to jointly write a petition to drive away this pest, Li Qingshan, after Ruan Yaozhu came out of seclusion. Li Qingshan didn't know that he had already become the target of public criticism, and even if he knew, he wouldn't care. To him, this was just, sharpening the knife will not delay the work of cutting firewood. As his nascent soul stabilized, he clearly understood the path of the unfettered heavenly book. Since there were 3,000 great Taos, there were endless spells. The spells derived from the Tao of unfettered included the art of charm, the art of bewitching, the art of flight, the art of transformation, and so on. Learning to use this type of spell would have a very strong effect. And this art of shadow splitting happened to be one of the spells he was most proficient in. In addition to the increase in his cultivation, with a thought, layers upon layers of illusions appeared around him, and they were no longer vague human figures. Not only were they condensed, but their appearances were also clear, very similar to his original body. Their movements were sharp and light, far from what mortals could reach. Chapter 1398. In the middle of the herb garden, there was a small village surrounded by mountains. The pavilions and terraces were extremely elegant, and the small bridges and flowing water added to the scenery. Rather than calling it a village, it was more like a large manor. This was the place where the cultivators of the 100-herb garden rested and communicated. Usually, they worked in the fields that they were responsible for. When they were free, they would come here for a small gathering. Under the pavilion, Shen Yushu stood facing the water. Sounds of discussion came from behind him. I wonder what is the background of that Li Qingshan? Why is senior sister Ruan so biased towards him? What nonsense are you talking about? Senior sister has always been impartial. How could she be biased? Could senior sister be a descendant of the Bailu country? No matter who he is, this is too much. At the very least, you should entrust a good job before you cultivate. I passed by that place a few days ago and saw that the 3-leafed bright flame flowers were almost wilting. This won't do. We must write a joint petition to kick this brat out. This is for the sake of the 100-herb garden. Without exception, these people were all disciples who had just arrived. Otherwise, they wouldn't have the right to talk about another disciple who had just arrived. At this moment, the crowd was enraged and they all requested Shen Yushu to take the lead and drive Li Qingshan out of the 100-herb garden. The corners of Shen Yushu's lips slightly rose as he turned around. Junior brothers and junior sisters, please calm down. That Li Qingshan's actions are obvious to everyone. Perhaps he didn't do it on purpose. I believe senior sister Ruan will give everyone an explanation. Not everyone is suitable to work in the 100-herb garden. Senior brother Shin is too magnanimous. He must have done it on purpose. Senior martial brother Shin is a gentleman, but you're gauging the heart of a lowly person with your own eyes. Senior sister Ruan is in seclusion right now, and we don't know when she will come out. We can't let this kid ruin the 100-herb garden. Since senior sister Ruan is not here, senior brother is in charge of the 100-herb garden. Why don't we join hands to take him down now and throw him out of the 100-herb garden? Shen Yushu repeatedly waved his hands. I am indebted to all the junior brothers and junior sisters for their kindness. I only stayed in the 100-herb garden for a few more days. How could he have crossed the line and done such a thing? Senior martial brother, please don't decline. This was all for the sake of the herb garden. When senior sister Ruan comes out of seclusion, we'll ask for her forgiveness together. Shen Yushu declined again. This 100-herb garden does not allow fights of magic. If he fights back and injures many flowers and trees, what should we do then? Senior brother, you're putting that kid in your eyes too much. If that kid dares to make a move, then it's his fault. Besides, with senior brother's cultivation, dealing with a lucky disciple who has just entered the sect should be a piece of cake. Why would you need to fight? Shen Yushu muttered to himself irresolutely for a long time before letting out a long sigh. All right then. He bowed towards the east 3 times. This one has a duty to fulfill. I ask for senior sister's forgiveness. If there was anything wrong, go ahead and ask for instructions. After waiting for a while, there was no sound. Chen Yushu smiled in his heart. That boy's actions most likely infuriated her. She has always regarded the flowers and plants in this 100-herb garden as extremely important. It's just that she didn't want to lose face, so she couldn't do anything about it. Me chasing that brat out might be what she wanted. With a wave of his sleeves, he said, "Let's go. Junior brothers and sisters, please be my witnesses." The group of people rode the clouds and rode the mist, flying through the air towards the gold leaf Bodhi tree. In the evening rain, the gold leaf Bodhi tree still shone brilliantly. In the distance, many figures could be seen moving in the forest below the hill. They seemed to be working. As so many people? Aren't they doppelgangers? Would I not be able to distinguish between doppelgangers and people? Besides, how could there be so many doppelgangers? Chen Yushu frowned. Could it be that someone had come to help him? But he felt that it wasn't very likely. In this 100-herb garden, even the attending disciples didn't dare to disobey his orders, not to mention those study companions and attendants. When he got closer, his eyes suddenly widened. Those figures were actually doppelgangers. But their bodies were too similar to real people, even their faces could be clearly distinguished. The figures were working in the forest, some fertilizing and some watering, working together with tacit understanding. Apart from the doppelgangers, there were actually more than 10 puppets. A red puppet spewed fire from its mouth, watering a cluster of 3-leafed bright flame flowers. The petals unfolded in the flames, without a hint of wilting. The rest of the puppets also had their own functions. They were operated as if they were alive. The cultivators behind were also shocked. They really are doppelgangers. How can he have so many doppelgangers? There are so many puppets. That consumes a lot of spiritual sense, but he can actually control them to such an extent. How did he do it? What cultivation level is he at? Is he really a nascent soul cultivator? If he went through 4 heavenly tribulations, wouldn't he have even more doppelgangers? And look at his work, it's so meticulous. He's practically a veteran among veterans. No matter how you look at it, it doesn't seem like he hasn't done it before. For a moment, all the anger and dissatisfaction turned into indescribable surprise. Chen Yushu frowned, suddenly feeling a great threat. This was no longer just a matter of vying for justice, but also related to his status in the 100-herb garden. In these years, there were also many inner disciples who worked in the 100-herb garden, but he found ways to push them out. He had the advantage of the heavenly book of nature. Other people, even if they had the same cultivation level, couldn't compete with him. In the end, he discovered that he couldn't get as many benefits here, so he might as well do other work. The contribution bookmarks that the 100-herb garden could provide were all given out together by the Myriad Appearance sect, and then distributed by Ruan Yaozhu, the master of the 100-herb garden, according to work. Chen Yushu had obtained a lot of benefits from it over the years. That was why he could increase his cultivation levels so quickly, approaching 5 heavenly tribulations. If it was said that he only had some thoughts about Ruan Yaozhu, then he would succeed if he couldn't. But this kind of resource was the root of his life that he absolutely couldn't give up. It was directly related to his cultivation path, so he absolutely couldn't let anyone threaten him. Rumble, 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 muffled thunder flashed in the clouds, crushing this part of the sky that wasn't that big. Chen Yushu shouted sternly, "Li Qingshan!" Li Qingshan was leisurely lying on the bamboo mat with his arms as a pillow. Hearing this, he didn't get up and lazily said, "What's the matter?" Chen Yushu floated down and walked forward. Changing his usual modest and gentlemanly appearance, he said in a harsh tone, "Do you know your crime?" "What crime have I committed?" "You've neglected your duties and slacked off these past few days, isn't that a crime?" The bottom of the hill was full of busy doppelgangers, so these words couldn't help but be a bit strange. Everyone knew that this time, Chen Yushu was really going to turn hostile, so they all kept their mouths shut. If Li Qingshan had continued to slack off, or if he had made a terrible mess and was willing to lower his head and admit defeat, Chen Yushu might have spared him. However, Given the current situation, he had made up his mind to chase him out of the 100-herb garden no matter what. Li Qingshan smiled. Are you blind? AI, this mouth of mine, why is it so disobedient? Everyone was shocked. The middle class of the myriad appearance sect was very clear. Even if they were of the same cultivation level, when a disciple who had just entered the hall saw a disciple who had just entered the hall, they had to bow in greeting, not to mention a disciple whose cultivation level was lower by a large realm. They didn't expect that this Li Qingshan would be so arrogant and bold, cursing as soon as he opened his mouth. Chen Yushu's expression changed, but he suppressed his anger. This matter was a bit over the line, so he had to do it beautifully. He coldly said, "Working hard now, don't you think it's too late?" Li Qingshan picked his ear and lightly blew at it. What does it have to do with you? AI, forget it, let it be. As long as it's happy, it's fine. Chen Yushu couldn't bear it anymore and angrily shouted, audacious. You, a disciple who has just entered the hall, dare to be rude to a disciple who has just entered the hall. Not only is this dereliction of duty, it's also rebelling against your superiors. Originally, I wanted to drive you out of the 100-herb garden, but now, I have to send you to the punishment bureau for trial. I can't go to the punishment bureau. Li Qingshan smiled. Leng Yuan didn't like him, so wouldn't he be sending himself to his door? This isn't up to you. Chen Yushu summoned a 9-segment green bamboo cane, and like a bolt of lightning, he pointed it at the space between Li Qingshan's eyebrows. Li Qingshan lazily got up, and with a casual grab, the 9-segment green bamboo cane fell into his hand. With a forceful thrust, it hit Chen Yushu's chest with a speed faster than before. Chen Yushu flew down the hill, and the sound of bones breaking could be faintly heard. Chen Yushu's eyes widened, his face filled with disbelief. Relying on his higher cultivation level, he thought he could easily take down Li Qingshan, but he didn't expect that it would be like this. Only then did the crowd of cultivators react, and they were all stunned. The one who flew out was Senior Brother Chen? How is this possible? There is a large realm difference between them, so how come the situation seems to be reversed? Some people also noticed that the hundreds of clones and more than 10 puppets were still working in an orderly manner, not the slightest bit affected. Chapter 1399. Under the golden leaf Bodhi tree, Li Qingshan stood upright, looking in all directions. After a period of cultivation, he had completely adapted to the laws of the human world. Even if it was suppressed, power was still power. Human cultivators had never been known for their valiant physiques. If Shen Yushu had used his spells from a distance, perhaps he could still fight, but to actually directly use his bamboo cane to strike, and even underestimate the enemy, he was simply asking to be humiliated. Within 10 steps, he could defeat a country. Even the Hui Long, who had the body of a true dragon, did not dare to underestimate him. Not to mention a stinky gardener who cultivated the natural heavenly book, had a weak physique, and was not good at fighting. Li Qing, you dare to attack Senior? Shen Yushu soared into the air and pointed his halberd at Li Qingshan. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and green light flowed on his body. In the blink of an eye, his injuries were healed, but his face was still red from shame and anger. Who do you think you are to be my senior? If we were not in Herb Garden, you would already be a dead man. Scram before I get angry. Li Qingshan impatiently waved his hand as if he was shooing away a fly. Good, good, good. Today, I will clean up for Herb Garden and Myriad Sect. In spirit leaving body. Shen Yushu shouted and a green shadow appeared behind him. It had the same appearance as him, but it had a trace of majesty and a feeling of floating like an immortal. Human cultivators transforming their nascent souls into deities was the first step on the path of immortals. There was a qualitative difference between them and nascent soul cultivators. He raised his hands and green light condensed. In an instant, the wind and clouds surged, illuminating the drizzling night rain. A green robe floated in the air. It was obvious that he was going to use an amazing spell. I gave you face, but you don't want it. Li Qingshan shook his head. He felt the bamboo cane in his hand tremble and wanted to fly away. He could feel that this was a good magic treasure, but it was not a qualified weapon. At least, it was not born to fight and kill, but more like a tool. He grabbed both ends and bent them. The bamboo cane immediately bent like a bow. It did not break, but it still made waves. "What do you want to do? Stop right now. You dared to destroy my magic treasure, I will not let you off." Shen Yushu's complexion changed greatly. This 9-segment green bamboo cane was his natal magic weapon. Not only was it not easy to obtain, but it also cost him a large amount of green jade lots. It had been with him for many years. A small part of the reason why he was able to thrive in the 100 Herb Garden was because of this 9-segment green bamboo cane. If it was broken, not only would he lose his bookmark, but his Een spirit would also be damaged. It might even affect his cultivation. The Tao of Slaughter. It was a fight to the death. Massacring cities and destroying countries, there was nothing he wouldn't do. He didn't even care about his life. Why should I cherish a walking stick? If you don't have the determination to bet your life on it, don't start a fight. Li Qingshan couldn't help but laugh. He didn't care and continued to exert force. "AI, junior brother Li, stop." Ruan Yaozhu walked out from behind the golden leaf Bodhi tree and walked past Li Qingshan. He casually took the 9-segment green bamboo cane and tossed it back to Shen Yushu. Shen Yushu felt as if he had been pardoned. "Senior sister, you saw it. You don't need to say anything, I saw it all." Ruan Yaozhu didn't look at him and directly interrupted him. She said with an unquestionable tone, "Disperse." Shen Yushu felt extremely wronged and said, "But senior sister, this kid is lazy, rebellious, and rude. How can this kind of person stay in the 100 Herb Garden?" Ruan Yaozhu ignored them and only said to the visiting disciples, "I hired you to work in the 100 Herb Garden, not for you to uphold justice. Please do your own things. If something like this happens again, leave the 100 Herb Garden." "Yes, senior sister." Everyone loudly responded, not daring to disobey. This kind of safe, stable, and beneficial job was hard to come by in the entire Myriad Appearance sect. Who would be willing to be expelled from the 100 Herb Garden? Besides, after seeing Li Qingshan's performance, the injustice in their hearts also disappeared. This proved that Ruan Yaozhu's vision was indeed not wrong. Even if they didn't want to admit it, this kind of method was definitely worth several of them. Shen Yushu's intentions were a bit suspicious. Only Shen Yushu's expression fluctuated. He was silent, as if he was very unconvinced. Ruan Yaozhu looked over and saw Shen Yushu descending from the sky. He lowered his head and cupped his hands. "Yes, senior sister." Li Qingshan looked over Ruan Yaozhu's shoulder and saw everyone bowing their heads. She was by no means an astute and powerful person. On the contrary, she was usually too gentle and too wooden. But at this moment, she unexpectedly had a kind of arrogant and imposing manner. After all, in the path of cultivation, cultivation was the most practical. A human emperor was a cut above others, and a modest and benevolent monarch was still a monarch. Ruan Yaozhu waved her hand and everyone dispersed. Li Qingshan smiled and said, "Thanks." Ruan Yaozhu returned to her senses and pursed her lips as she stared at him. Li Qingshan said, "Are you angry?" "Sorry, I shouldn't have cultivated for so many days. I didn't think it would take so long in the beginning." "Not because of this." "Oh, then blame me for hitting that Shen Yushu. But he was the one who made the first move." Li Qingshan raised both of his hands, "But I'm still sorry, I shouldn't have caused trouble in your territory. It's also not because of this. Junior brother Shin has a selfish motive, so he wanted to find trouble with you. Even if you didn't make a move, I wouldn't have let him harm a hair on you." Li Qingshan was stunned. "Then why?" Ruan Yaozhu repeated word by word, "The path of fighting and killing, you die and I live. Massacring cities and exterminating countries, stopping at nothing." Only now did Li Qingshan understand that her dissatisfaction with him was actually because of one sentence. He thought to himself, "Women are really troublesome. But who asked this woman to treat me so well?" He could only spread his hands. "I'm just saying, but this is reality. I can understand that you cultivate the heavenly book of freedom and want to walk the path of freedom." Ruan Yaozhu said, But I don't want you to become that kind of person who stops at nothing, or else I will loathe you. Li Qingshan frowned and didn't back down anymore. He looked straight into her eyes. What if I am that kind of person? What if I didn't just say these words, but also did them? I've already said that not everyone is as lucky as you to be able to live a clean and innocent life in this kind of place. Do you know how many battles I went through to be able to stand in front of you? I don't want to deceive you. If you loathe someone like me, feel free to chase me out of the 100-herb garden. But I will still do my best to repay your kindness. He could apologize for anything as long as the person was worthy of his gentle treatment. However, the existence of Tao must be upheld, no matter who that person was. If someone questioned him with words, he would refute with words. If someone tried to stop him with actions, he would break it with his fists. Ruan Yaozhu took half a step back and let out a long sigh. Isn't standing here enough? Of course not. Li Qingshan smiled, dispelling the heavy atmosphere. At least I want to be on equal footing with you, or let you call me senior brother. Ruan Yaozhu said angrily, You wish. She then said seriously, I don't know what you have experienced, but I will do my best to persuade you to do good. Even if you are unhappy, I will still say it, because I believe you don't want to be a bad person. Chapter 1400. Li Qingshan was slightly taken aback. Then he laughed out loud, his laughter echoing in the rain. He was extremely happy. He set off towards beyond the 9 heavens. Along the way, it was not just for a promise, but also for meeting such a cute girl on the way. I'm willing to listen to senior sister's teachings. Ruan Yaozhu said, Don't laugh. There will be times when you'll be frustrated. Li Qingshan smiled. Since I've come to the human realm, my greatest fortune is meeting you. Even if I'm a little frustrated, I can only endure it. Same to you. Ruan Yaozhu could not help but avert her gaze, avoiding his burning gaze. She looked back at the many clones and puppets plowing in the fields. Maybe I should give you some more work. Li Qingshan clasped his hands. I couldn't ask for more. As a result, his responsible field expanded from a radius of 5 kilometers to a radius of 50 kilometers. It expanded by 25 times, and he was never disturbed again. He did not let Ruan Yaozhu down. With the powerful deduction ability of the spirit turtle transformation and the keen senses of the Qilin transformation, he used the many shadow clones conjured from the heavenly tome of freedom to work hard day and night. Not only did he complete the basic work, but he also did everything he could to stimulate the vitality of all the plants, making them grow more and more vigorous. Another month passed like this. The 100-herb garden entered winter, senior sister. When the first snow fell, the fine snow drifted down and covered the ground. Ruan Yaozhu arrived on the back of a deer. Li Qingshan was cultivating under the golden leaf Bodhi tree. He did not feel the flow of time at all. The last time they met seemed like yesterday. In the blink of an eye, he saw Ruan Yaozhu smile again. Ruan Yaozhu looked around and smiled in satisfaction. You've done well. As she said that, she flicked her fingers. The badge on Li Qingshan's chest lit up. He checked with his spiritual sense and was slightly surprised. So many. Ruan Yaozhu smiled. Originally, your reward should be half contribution and half bookmarks, but I made the decision for you and gave you both contributions. There's also an additional reward. Is this in line with the rules? Don't let Letian find fault with me and say I cheated. Over a month in the human realm. More than a year had already passed in the 5 continents world. Under the operations of Green Towering Mountain and the Banyan Tree King, a city of novelists was rising. It had already caused a wave in the entire world, and countless people had thrown themselves into this cause. Soon, he would be able to bloom and bear fruit, and then he could openly cheat. What Lutian? He's your senior brother. When you see me, you must call me senior sister. Do you understand? Ruan Yaozhu lectured. However, she usually didn't have any majestic aura and still appeared weak and weak. Li Qingshan smiled and said, as the saying goes, there is no father and son in a casino, not to mention brothers and sisters. Ruan Yaozhu shook her head helplessly. Don't worry, using bookmarks to exchange for contribution points. This is a common practice in the sect. There won't be any problems. I'm just worried that you'll be at a disadvantage. The better the 100-herb garden is managed, the better. The more spirit herbs I supply to the sect, the more contribution points and bookmarks I can get from the Myriad Nature sect. How can I lose out? That's good. Li Qingshan looked at the 9-colored deer strangely, wondering why she didn't interrupt today. The 9-colored deer raised her head proudly and closed her eyes. After what Ruan Yaozhu said that day, she decided not to talk to Li Qingshan anymore, but because of Ruan Yaozhu's unusual appearance when she returned to the cave abode last time, she still wanted to help her master keep an eye on him. Ruan Yaozhu praised. The Book of Freedom is indeed mysterious. He's actually able to create so many clones while cultivating. It's just a small matter, it's not worth mentioning. Li Qingshan sniggered. During this period of time, his heavenly tome of freedom could be described as progressing rapidly. His soul nascence had become more and more stable, and he had comprehended the cloning shadow transformation technique more and more thoroughly at the same time, which was why he had so many shadow clones. However, the Qilin longevity strategy wasn't on the right track as expected, it was still stuck in a bottleneck and couldn't get out. If it continued like this, he wouldn't wait for the Qilin longevity strategy to reach the first level, he would have to go through the tribulation. Ruan Yaozhu smiled. If that's the case, then I'll leave this 50-mile radius to you from now on. Li Qingshan was surprised. You don't want me to work and cultivate at the same time? Ruan Yaozhu shook her head with a smile. Li Qingshan thought for a while and said, Give me some time. When I go through the 4th heavenly tribulation, I will have more clones, and then there will be no problem. Ruan Yaozhu shook her head again. Li Qingshan raised his eyebrows. Then I can only refuse. I can't take care of such a big place, my work and cultivation will all be delayed. Ruan Yaozhu looked at his confused and indignant look and found it very interesting. You're too anxious. Why should I be anxious? You're anxious to accumulate contribution points and win the bet. You're anxious to cultivate and improve your cultivation level. It feels like something is forcing you, it's more serious than losing the bet. Shouldn't that be the case? It should be, but you should have heard of more haste, less speed. I only know that 10,000 years is too long, seize every minute. Do you know why I didn't care when you didn't care about these precious plants and only focused on cultivation? Do you know why I didn't care? Do you know why there are 4 seasons in this herb garden? These 2 questions seemed simple, but Li Qingshan thought for a while and couldn't answer them. Even if Ruan Yaozhu was on his side, she could still wake him up or arrange for someone else to help him take care of these plants. Most plants like the height of summer and would stop growing once winter came. With the mysterious spells of the nature sect, they could completely keep this place in summer. Winter seemed very unnecessary. Didn't we set up this herb garden to cultivate rare plants and provide resources for the sect? Is there any other purpose? Ruan Yaozhu reached out and caught a sparkling snowflake. She said with a smile, That's what you say, but you can't think about it. Li Qingshan said, Senior Martial Sister, don't keep me in suspense. Senior Martial Sister's long-winded speech will only annoy you. Junior Martial Brother, I'm all ears. The 9-colored deer suddenly coughed twice. Ruan Yaozhu said, You have the Qilin bloodline, so you can feel the heart of the plants and understand their needs. You use water and fertilizer to the extreme and control it to the slightest degree. What's wrong with that? All living beings born in this world must experience hardships in order to grow strong. There must be sunlight, rain, and dew, as well as snow and drought. Plants are intelligent, but they are ignorant and heartless. Besides, even humans, who are the most intelligent of all living beings, if you gave them whatever they wanted, what would they become? At least they'd be fat. When you don't care about them and only care about cultivation, these plants will wither a bit, but in order to obtain nutrients, they will take root even deeper. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, so I don't care. Instead, I'm afraid that you're taking care of them too meticulously, so I increased your workload. I didn't think you could do this. Li Qingshan sighed. I didn't think that taking care of them too meticulously would also be a problem. Ruan Yaozhu smiled and comforted him. If it were someone else, I would advise them to take care of these plants carefully, because no matter how meticulous they are, they won't be able to reach your level. But you can do better. Cultivation is the same. It's good to advance bravely, but you can't be too hasty. More haste, less speed. If you're too impatient for results and want to do everything, you won't be able to reach your goal. In more practical terms, even if it's just to use their fruits and leaves to refine pills, it'll be most effective if they grow slowly. Let nature take its course. A light flashed in Li Qingshan's mind, as if it was the first ray of light that pierced through the dark night. He muttered to himself, "Let nature take its course, let nature take its course." I understand. He finally understood why his Qilin strategy of longevity had always been stagnant. It wasn't because he was too evil, but because he was too impatient. All along, he had adhered to the words, "advance bravely," advancing without fear of hardships and dangers. This spirit had long since fused into his blood, becoming a kind of instinct. The bottleneck of cultivating the Qilin strategy of longevity stemmed from this belief. However, the Qilin transformation was different from other transformations. It wasn't that he wasn't diligent enough. On the contrary, he was too diligent and spent too much energy. If there was a common characteristic among the rare flowers and plants in the 100-herb garden, it would be that they grew very slowly. Some spiritual trees didn't even change after more than 10 years. However, he was too impatient. Thus, he did good deeds and accumulated virtue just to be in line with the Qilin's path. Thus, he cultivated diligently, wishing that he could devote all his energy. It was like planting a seed that didn't germinate, so he watered it more and applied more fertilizer. He even couldn't help but dig it up to see if there was a problem with the seed. In the end, things didn't go as he wished. The seed didn't have a problem, but he had a problem. He once heard a story about a hunchback with the surname of Guo who was very good at planting trees. There was never a tree that didn't grow well, and it was very lush. Others couldn't learn it. When someone asked him, he said, "I can't make the tree grow quickly or live long. I'm just following the nature of the tree. I can make the roots stretch out, make the soil firm, and so on." Once the tree was planted, there was no need to care too much and let the tree grow naturally. Others were either too careless or too worried. They would look at the tree in the morning and touch it at night. They would even shake it to see if the roots were deep. If they peeled the bark to see if the tree had dried up, they would kill the tree instead. The Qilin takes pity on the common people. Originally, as long as one had a benevolent heart, he would have the foundation to cultivate the Qilin strategy of longevity. However, he could never become a good person. It was inevitable that he would fall into a dilemma. The more he wanted to be in line with the Qilin's path, the more he would deviate from the Qilin's path. The Qilin's path didn't lie in being benevolent and kind, but in letting nature take its course. It was like the growth of plants and trees, withering and flourishing with each passing year. As long as he didn't completely abandon his benevolent heart, the Qilin transformation would grow like a big tree. Killing intent and evil thoughts were just necessary to go through wind, frost, rain, and snow. It wasn't possible, and it didn't need to be. Chapter 1401. Ruan Yaozhu tilted her head slightly and looked at Li Qingshan strangely. She didn't know why her words would cause such a strong reaction from him. Her long-winded speech was actually not very popular. The other true disciples had their own Tao and did not listen to her. For a gambler like Lutian, it would be useless even if she spoke for 1,000 years. As for those disciples who had entered the inner chamber, although they did not dare to disobey, they were afraid of her identity and status. On the surface, they flattered her, but in their hearts, they did not think much of it. That was why she told Li Qingshan in the beginning, "There will be times when you will be upset." She didn't expect that it would have such a good effect. She couldn't help but feel a little proud and subconsciously stroke her hair. The 9-colored deer understood her the best and was extremely vigilant. Not good, this brat is too good at stirring up trouble. Soft blockhead likes this kind of thing. Bastard, he was so resolute just now, but in the blink of an eye, he seems to have gained enlightenment. Why don't I think these words are useful? Yes, he must be pretending. Li Qingshan closed his eyes and let out a long sigh. His whole body relaxed. The speed at which he operated the Qilin's longevity strategy was much slower, but it was more natural and peaceful. It was like the flowers and trees after the rain, looking brand new. The obvious change made even the nine-colored deer raise his eyebrows. He thought, "This acting is too good." Looking at Ruan Yaozhu again, the smile on her face was even brighter, looking at him with eyes as warm as the spring breeze in March. Just like how men had the desire to save those who had lost their footing, women had the desire to tame ferocious beasts. The gentle young man could at most be a first-class spare tire, while the overbearing Xiao was the eternal male god. Li Qingshan, the wild and untamed beast, seemed to have unwittingly catered to her mood, and her affection for him increased by leaps and bounds. On the contrary, he didn't think much of it. He insisted on his own path and wasn't stubbornly going his own way. If it was Ruan Yaozhu's method, it would allow him to take care of more land, obtain more contribution points, and improve his cultivation. But he still insisted on doing things his own way. That wasn't persistence, it was stupidity. But because of the special characteristics of the Qilin transformation, naturally, it was impossible for him to be enlightened and immediately ascend. However, he believed that after wandering for a long time, he had already found the right path. He then opened his eyes and cupped his hands in obeisance. "Thank you for your guidance, senior martial sister. To me, these words are more valuable than a heavenly book." Ruan Yaozhu accepted it calmly. Her beautiful eyes narrowed into a smile. "No matter how powerful you are when it comes to planting trees and flowers, I'm still the one who knows better. Now you understand." Nine-colored deer thought, "Not good." Soft would actually said such immodest words. He must be very proud of himself. This kid really does cultivate the sky demon path. "I should have asked you for guidance the first time we met." Li Qingshan sighed emotionally. That way, he could have saved 2 to 3 months of time. Perhaps he would have already transcended the 4th heavenly tribulation by now. "Look, you're getting anxious again. You're afraid that I'll deal with you the first time we meet? Why would he ask me for guidance? And I don't know who you are. Why would I talk to you like this? Let nature take its course, and that's how I've come to this realization today." "That makes sense." Li Qingshan nodded. Going with the flow of nature was indeed his biggest blind spot. This was because he had always relied on the stubbornness of the ox demon, the frenzy of the tiger demon, and the freedom of the ape demon to get to where he was today. He also had the noble heart of a phoenix that soared to the heavens and didn't fall to the mortal world. Although the spirit tortoise was quiet, it had a myriad of thoughts in a single thought, and it was inevitable that it would run out of tricks. Everything was for the sake of becoming stronger and faster. He wholeheartedly wanted to defy the heavens and change his fate. If not for Ruan Yaozhu's enlightenment, he might have needed a long time to comprehend it, and he had always helped her. He was indeed very grateful. Also, I'm indeed luckier than most people. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. I almost died during my first heavenly tribulation. Really? Li Qingshan was shocked. The first heavenly tribulation should have been the easiest. With her talent, there was actually a problem. At that time, I was just a servant. I didn't know anything and I just wanted to go home. That's really interesting. Only now did Li Qingshan know that she had been forcibly kidnapped to the myriad phenomenon sect. She had left her home and parents, and suddenly turned from a princess to a servant. He really didn't know if it was fortunate or unfortunate. She had a gentle temperament and liked to meddle in other people's business, so she had suffered a lot. She was regarded as naive and ignorant by her companions, and they even repaid her kindness with enmity for small benefits. All of these made her heart full of pain. In order to go home, she had rushed to undergo the heavenly tribulation, but in the end, she failed and almost died. Every human emperor had their own legend. No one's journey was really smooth sailing. Luck could explain everything. Even at such a realm, there were still many trials and tribulations. The snow was getting heavier and heavier. It rustled down and covered the Bodhi tree. The cheerful laughter became clearer and warmer. The atmosphere under the tree was filled with a happy atmosphere. "Master, we should go back." The 9-colored deer's coughs were ignored several times. Finally, it couldn't help but interrupt. The word, master, was a very serious reminder. Ruan Yaozhu finally came to her senses. She couldn't help but blush. She only said softly, "I'm leaving," and left in a hurry. Li Qingshan watched as her figure vanished into the snow. He felt rather unsatisfied as well as rather melancholic. After standing for a while, he scratched his chest. He took out his wine gourd and drank a few mouthfuls. Then he threw this thought to the back of his mind. He still had a lot of work to do. A radius of 50 kilometers was a very large area. He didn't know if his shadow clone could reach that far. He had to improve his heavenly book of freedom and fractal shadowization technique. He also had to think carefully about what he should do next. Let nature take its course definitely didn't mean not doing or thinking about anything. It was just following the laws of nature. Although, more haste, less speed, it was even more impossible to do it if he stood still. The key was to be just right. If he managed this land well, he would have a very stable source of contribution points. As his cultivation increased, it might not be any less than cheating from Spirit Venerable Guihai. In a cave abode in a distant mountain, the 9-colored deer, who had taken on the appearance of a young girl, grabbed Ruan Yaozhu's delicate shoulder and shook it. "You must chase him out. You must chase him out. Do you hear me?" He didn't do anything wrong. Ruan Yaozhu shook her head helplessly. "Jiu, I beg you, stop shaking me. That's why it's scary. You should really see your expression just now." Ruan Yaozhu felt a little embarrassed. "I just can't accept it. He keeps saying that I'm too lucky." The 9-colored deer said, "He's not the only one who thinks so. Who have you explained so much to? Believe me, this is your predestined fate." Li Qingshan would never have imagined that he would receive such an evaluation. However, if he really heard it, he probably wouldn't feel any desire. It wasn't like he had never done such a thing before. Not long ago, he transformed into a predestined fate and dragged Chua Long down from the throne. Chapter 1402. She leaped into the air and turned into a white deer, running out of the cave. "I won't allow it." Ruan Yaozhu raised her hand. Vines danced in the air and blocked the entrance of the cave. Thousands of leaves and flowers bloomed. The 9-colored deer looked back. "Do you know how many years it's been since you've been so angry? Softwood, where's your let nature take its course?" Ruan Yaozhu's expression changed. Things didn't always go her way. She was already used to the greed and evil of people. Although she was still nagging and meddling, she no longer hoped to change anyone. She would rather retreat to the herb garden and let nature take its course. If Letian wanted to gamble, then let him gamble. If the white deer country should be destroyed, then so be it. However, Li Qingshan could be changed. Although he was stubborn in his Tao, he wasn't stubborn. After going through so much hardship to get here, he still had a kind heart. Now that he could finally find some peace in the herb garden, how could he just abandon it? She didn't think it was love, but when she thought of his shocked and disappointed expression, she couldn't bear to do such a thing. This is my own business." "Ruan Yaozhu, how dare you say that? I'm so angry. Stop me if you can. I swear I won't rest until I chase that kid out of the herb garden." The 9-colored deer waved its beautiful antlers. Thousands of flowers withered, leaves fell, and vines cracked. "All right, don't be angry." Ruan Yaozhu walked up and gently stroked her neck. "I know you're doing this for my own good," she comforted. "If I die, it's because my Tao heart isn't strong enough. I can't blame others." She spun around on the spot, her green dress fluttering in the wind. She smiled and said, "Am I that fickle that you don't trust me? How about we make a bet?" The 9-colored deer asked. "There seem to be too many bets recently." "You know I don't gamble," Ruan Yaozhu said helplessly. "All right, what do you want to bet?" "Bet on whether that kid will leave the herb garden." The 9-colored deer said. Li Qingshan was in an extremely good mood right now. After comprehending the Qilin's path, he had broken through the bottleneck immediately. All he needed to do next was follow the prescribed order. At the same time, he prepared to manage the responsible field that spanned 50 kilometers. There was a familiar cough. The nine-colored deer stepped through the wind and snow, leisurely walking over. Hey, why are you here again? Where is senior sister Ruan? The nine-colored deer said in a reserved manner, she is cultivating in the cave abode. I came here secretly because I have something to tell you. What is it? Li Qingshan looked her up and down. Could it be that she had fallen for him? He wondered what he would look like if he transformed into a human. The nine-colored deer was annoyed by his stare. I hope you can stay away from her. Li Qingshan thought to himself, what a familiar dialogue. He seemed to have heard it somewhere before. He smiled and said, isn't it far enough now? I want you to leave the 100 herb garden. Why? Li Qingshan asked curiously. He was just chatting with Ruan Yaozhu, but this damned deer seemed to dislike him. Because you disturbed the order of the 100 herb garden. It's not a good influence. That's not very fair. It was clearly someone else who came to find trouble with me. Moreover, when I cross the fourth heavenly tribulation, I will naturally bestow a new order here. Li Qingshan's face was full of confidence. The nine-colored deer couldn't help but believe him, but he deliberately said disdainfully, a new order, what a big tone. Li Qingshan spread his arms. When I cross the fourth heavenly tribulation, I will have 10 times the number of clones and will have a clearer understanding of the way of nature. At that time, you can drive that brat Shin Yushu out. The nine-colored deer was somewhat speechless. If someone else said this, it could be regarded as arrogance. But he seemed to really be able to do it. He said impatiently, let's put it this way, I don't want her to be too close to men. Li Qingshan was startled and took half a step back. You have that kind of relationship? Could it be, everyone has a lily in their heart? Thinking of what Ruan Yaozhu said, when she was at her most difficult, it was thanks to the nine-colored deer's support. This didn't seem strange, but he felt that it was too much of a pity. As his voice fell, he felt a sharp pain in his foot. The deer's hooves were ruthlessly grinding on his foot. The nine-colored deer gritted his teeth and said, what nonsense are you talking about? There was a burst of laughter in the 100 Grass Immortals cave. Ruan Yaozhu happily watched the nine-colored deer suffer a setback and felt a burst of warmth. Everything she did was for her. They had accompanied each other for 1,000 years, sharing weal and woe, going through life and death together. It was much closer than that kind of relationship. Li Qingshan looked at his feet and spread out his hands. I'm the one who is baffled. I'm obviously doing well and helping senior sister Ruan, so why do you suddenly want me to leave? Is this your idea or senior sister Ruan's? The nine-colored deer slowly withdrew its hooves. All right, I'll be straightforward. Yaozhu doesn't know that this is my idea. Li Qingshan said angrily, what exactly do you not like about me? I have a little Qilin bloodline and helped you win a lot of green jade lots. Even if you don't want to be friends with me, you don't have to be so hostile. To be honest, you're very good, and I don't hate you. Just because you helped us win those green jade lots, I should give you some benefits. But Yaozhu is at the critical moment of becoming a human immortal, and I don't want anyone or anything to disturb her and distract her. She's very gentle to everyone, and because you're very good, she's especially gentle to you. I don't think there's anything between you two, but even if there's only 1 in 10,000 danger, I'll try my best to avoid it. Do you understand? How about this, I won't let you suffer for nothing. If you're willing to leave, I'll give you 100 green jade lots as compensation. Li Qingshan was silent for a moment. He walked back and forth under the tree with his hands clasped behind his back. Suddenly he said, you're right. I have to leave, but I won't take the bookmarks. You don't owe me anything, so you don't need to compensate me. Otherwise, this plot was too familiar. It was simply the rhythm of, I'll give you 1 million to leave my daughter. You agree? The nine-colored deer was surprised. It thought he would at least ask to see Ruan Yaozhu, but it didn't expect him to agree so readily. I'll go and ask for senior sister Ruan's resignation. No, it's better not to see her. I'll write a resignation letter, and you can take it to her for me. Li Qingshan said and began to look for a pen and paper. He didn't hesitate to leave. The nine-colored deer blinked its eyes in confusion. Things were going so smoothly that it felt unreal. Chapter 1403. Her bet with Ruan Yaozhu was a bet on whether or not she could persuade him to leave 100 Herb Garden. If she couldn't persuade him, it would prove that he had other thoughts like Xin Yushu, just that they were hidden very deeply. Moreover, he was much more dangerous than Xin Yushu. Even if it was just to be safe, she had to drive him out. In other words, if he was willing to leave, he could stay. If he wasn't willing to leave, he would be driven away. Ruan Yaozhu couldn't argue with her and could only agree. Otherwise, if she lost her temper, Li Qingshan would absolutely not be able to stay. Now that she heard him agree to leave so readily, her smile became even brighter. But it was a bit strange. She saw Li Qingshan hastily write his resignation letter and immediately start handing over work as if he was escaping. She also felt a bit disappointed and frustrated. Could it be that he really didn't have a trace of reluctance to leave? The 9-colored deer looked at the letter of resignation. It didn't have the slightest bit of resentment. Instead, it said that it suddenly had an important matter and had no choice but to leave 100 Herb Garden. It very sincerely asked for Ruan Yaozhu's forgiveness. There was simply no fault to be found. You don't need to be so anxious. She suddenly realized that she had done a stupid thing. If she wanted to drive Li Qingshan out, she had to persuade Li Qingshan to stay. She was so conflicted that she wanted to hit her head against a tree. No, I'll leave immediately. 9-colored deer was filled with unwillingness as she probed. You don't want to see her again and say goodbye in person? Maybe she will persuade you to stay. Li Qingshan sighed and waved his hand. No, absolutely not. I'm afraid we won't see each other again. Ruan Yaozhu's expression darkened and she felt wronged. Even if I really can't keep you in 100 Herb Garden, I have never let you down. Why do I have to say such resolute words? 9-colored deer was happy and thought that his plan worked. As long as Ruan Yaozhu hated him, the bet was secondary. He pretended to sigh. As expected, you are very dissatisfied, but this is also human nature. You have just settled down and have such a good cultivation treasure land. Anyone would be dissatisfied if they were to be forced to leave. Shen Yushu cultivated Nature Heavenly Book and worked in 100 Herb Garden for hundreds of years, which was of great help to Ruan Yaozhu. But don't worry, I will also invite him out in the future. But he deliberately used Xin Yushu to provoke Li Qingshan, thinking, hey, kid, you two have caused a ruckus. He can stay, but you want to leave. Let me ask you, are you convinced? If you're not convinced, then stay. It turns out that Xin Yushu also cultivates the Nature Heavenly Book. No wonder his aura is somewhat similar to senior sister Ruan's. However, I think it's better to let him stay in the 100 Herb Garden. What? The 9-colored deer simply doubted whether or not he had heard wrongly. Was this still the Li Qingshan who taught Xin Yushu a lesson without saying a word? Li Qingshan smiled and said, don't worry. I'm not so narrow-minded, and senior sister Ruan treats me even better. Instead, I have to thank you. Thank me for what? Thank you for reminding me, otherwise it would have affected senior sister Ruan's cultivation. Then it would be too late for regrets. The 9-colored deer was somewhat moved. Then why do you want Xin Yushu to stay? Because you misjudged some probability. That guy Xin Yushu isn't even 1 in 100 million danger to senior sister Ruan. The 100 Herb Garden still has to be managed properly, so it's better to keep him. And the danger I pose to her is more than 1 in 10,000. Li Qingshan flung his bangs and couldn't help but sigh. Even if I don't have any improper thoughts, too much charm is also a crime. A loud bang accompanied by the sound of bones cracking, the ground collapsed and cracked. Li Qingshan was surprised. Why did you step on me again? I don't know, I couldn't help it. The 9-colored deer squeezed out these words from between his teeth. He had never seen such a shameless person. Where did this stupid self-confidence come from? In the 100 Herb Cave, Ruan Yaozhu was shaking with laughter. What was going on? Li Qingshan waved his hand. Take off your hoof. I'm leaving. You don't have to leave. The 9-colored deer said through gritted teeth. Facing such a lunatic, it was impossible for her to win this bet. I have to go, Li Qingshan said resolutely, forcibly pulling his foot back. He had always been a person who would repay a favor of a meal and take revenge for a grudge. Yuan Yaozhu's kindness to him was more than just a meal. Although she had always been dissolute, he was indebted to others. He absolutely could not harm the cultivation of others. This was where his principle lay. Go, 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 please leave quickly. The nine-colored deer turned his head, feeling that he was about to be driven crazy by him. Zhou Er, you lost, don't be angry anymore. Yuan Yaozhu appeared under the tree and explained the whole story, saying apologetically, I'm sorry, I made a bet with you again. Zhou Er was too worried about me and was too careful. This was the only way to prove to her that you are not that kind of person. No, she is right. This is my problem. Li Qingshan clasped his hands. Senior sister Yuan, I'll remember your kindness. The mountains will never change, and the rivers will always flow. I'll definitely return the favor in the future. Yuan Yaozhu smiled bitterly. Please stay. I, your senior sister, will never have any improper thoughts about you. Really? Really? Yuan Yaozhu was both angry and amused. Li Qingshan let out a sigh of relief. Then I can rest assured. He was still a little worried. If you need me to leave one day, just say the word. I won't say that. I hope you won't say things like, we won't meet again. It makes me feel sad. Yuan Yaozhu said sincerely. Although his blind confidence made things very strange, his intentions were definitely not fake. He would rather give up a cultivation treasure like the 100-herb garden and ignore the bet with Lutian than threaten her in the slightest. I don't feel good in my heart either. Forget it, even if I stay in the 100-herb garden, try not to see me as much as possible. I come whenever I want. Is this my territory or your territory? Yuan Yaozhu pouted, understanding Zhou Er's feelings. These words were too infuriating. It was as if she couldn't help but give herself to him just because she came to see him a few times. I'm doing this for your own good. Actually, I have a lot of women. If you say that again, I'm really going to get angry. Yuan Yaozhu interrupted him and narrowed her eyes. She still had a bit of self-respect. Since she was young, she had never been treated like this. The betrayal of her companions in the past was mostly due to jealousy. Even among the true disciples, there were many who were willing to become Dao companions with her. Brat, you're too full of yourself. All right. I'm going to start cultivating. Li Qingshan asked her to leave. He looked at her as if she was a little girl who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. He almost touched her head and said, hurry up and go home. Li Qingshan. Yuan Yaozhu felt that the atmosphere wasn't right. She wanted to leave, but if she just left like that, it would be too unnatural. She glanced at Zhou Er with a reproachful expression. Heavens, I finally understand what it means to be unable to escape a calamity. You two lunatics, you'd better behave yourselves. The nine-colored deer couldn't stand it anymore and let out a sigh. Not only did it not achieve its goal, but it also pushed them from behind. Filled with grief and indignation, it rushed away against the wind and snow. To be continued. Chapter 1404. Heavy snow fell one after another. The Bodhi tree was covered in frost, but the golden leaves didn't wither. They shone with golden light through the frost and snow. The iron gourd hung upside down and shook a few more times before helplessly dropping the last drop of wine. Li Qingshan smacked his lips. It seems like the new year is coming. There was a saying, there is no 60-year cycle in the mountains. One does not know the year after the end of the winter. Cultivators' time was often counted in thousands of years, so the one-year plan of mortals didn't seem to have much meaning. However, since he was once a mortal, he couldn't be completely unmoved. Not to mention that he was all alone, eating the wind and drinking the snow, drifting for tens of thousands of miles. Time flew by, and it was deep cold. Everything stopped growing, and there was much less work. Everyone gathered in the small town to celebrate. Because of this 100-herb garden, they felt the seasons more clearly than normal cultivators. Cheerful laughter floated over the distant mountains, and along with the cold wind came the aroma of all kinds of food. Li Qingshan couldn't help but take a deep breath. Of course, no one came to invite him. Other than Xin Yushu, he didn't even talk to them, so he was happy to be alone. However, after being probed by the 9-colored deer, Ruan Yaozhu didn't come again. It seemed like she had wisely accepted his suggestion. Although he didn't regret it, he couldn't help but feel some regret. It had to be said that he really liked her. If he didn't have the ambition of the 9 heavens, staying with her in this 100-herb garden seemed like a good choice. However, why did it have to be her? He didn't care about anything and had already let down too many beauties. He shook his head and cast his consciousness towards the 5 regions world. Although it was winter in the mortal realm, here was the golden autumn harvest season. On the fertile plains, a majestic city stood. Its layout was actually somewhat similar to Wanxiang City, especially the tall buildings in the city, which were almost the same as the sky, just that the scale was many times smaller. This was the Cloud Void City that Li Qingshan personally built with the mighty power of the world for his grand plan. That's right, this name came from the original Cloud Void Society, and Lu Chuanfeng was the current Cloud Void City Lord. In the past, the 100 schools all had their own holy lands. For example, the Buddhist Lingua Temple, the Medicine Schools, Imperial Hospital, and the Confucian Schools, Imperial College. Only the School of Novels did not. Now that Li Qingshan, a disciple of the School of Novels, had carried it forward, it finally had it. The various holy lands were different. This place did not belong to cultivators alone. Most of the people in the city were mortals without any power. Because the location Li Qingshan had chosen was too good, it suddenly became one of the most important transportation hubs in the continent, with countless Jianghu travelers and merchants coming and going. There were also countless down-and-out people who put their life experiences and thoughts into words to fight for a future. The first year, under Qian Lingji's guidance, the Lord of Cloud Void City, Lu Chuanfeng, acted as if he was buying a horse's bones with 1,000 pieces of gold. Gold and silver were not stingy at all. Regardless of the quality of the novels they collected, all they wanted was to attract more people. Later on, they began to pay attention to quality, and the threshold was also extremely low. Facts had proven that as long as there were enough benefits, humans could always burst forth with unimaginably powerful motivation. In just a few years, the pseudo-heaven had accumulated more than 10,000 volumes of novels. After careful selection, there were still nearly 100 scrolls left. Li Qingshan swept his eyes over them and recorded them all into a jade scroll. He stood up and said with a smile, "It's time to buy some wine to drink. The long road is long, don't sigh at the lonely journey, there will be a day when the world knows you." In the small town surrounded by mountains, the voices of people were clamorous, toasts were exchanged, and it was very lively. The banquet was in full swing, and Xin Yushu sat high up. He was fawned over by everyone, but his face was shrouded in a layer of haze, without the slightest bit of joy. Ruan Yaozhu did not accept his invitation, and that damned Li Qingshan continued to expand his territory. In a short 2 to 3 months, he had reached a circumference of 100 li. What was even worse was that he also took care of the thousands of strange flowers and plants within a circumference of 100 li in an orderly manner, not only proving himself, but also proving Ruan Yaozhu's accurate vision. Ruan Yaozhu's favor towards that Li Qingshan was simply unusual, and the meaning behind it made him tremble with fear. Ruan Yaozhu was clearly already very dissatisfied with him. If there was a day when Li Qingshan crossed 4 heavenly tribulations, had stronger power, and had more doppelgangers, then he would immediately be kicked out, just like those losers that he had driven out. Those losers at least had other choices, and for him, there was no place more suitable for cultivation than the 100-herb garden. Crossing 5 heavenly tribulations, the dream of becoming a successor disciple would be extended indefinitely, and becoming Dao companions with Ruan Yaozhu was even more of an idiot's ravings. He couldn't help but feel somewhat regretful. Perhaps he should not have shown it so directly, and should have waited until he became a successor disciple before slowly plotting. But if it wasn't for obtaining her help, why would he have racked his brains and risked defending her to press forward step by step? He was too confident, thinking that no one could replace his position with a volume of the natural heavenly tomes, otherwise he would not have dared to take an inch and take a mile. He did not expect that a person who cultivated another heavenly tomes could also replace his position. Damn it! A trace of harshness flashed through his eyes, and the wine cup in his hand cracked. The crisis was constantly approaching, but he could only sit here, without the slightest bit of a solution. This was the 100 Herb Garden, and everything was under her control, so he couldn't use any tricks. She seemed to be looking down at him from a high position. It was her usual gentleness and dullness that gave him an illusion that the distance between them was very close. At this time, he suddenly realized that there was a huge gap between a chamber disciple and a successor disciple. If he was expelled from the 100 Herb Garden, not only would it greatly affect his cultivation, but he would also be questioned and even suppressed. Because her prestige in the Myriad Appearance sect was too high, making her an enemy was equivalent to carving the word bad on his face. Just when he didn't dare to continue thinking about it, a cultivator quietly came behind Shin Yushu and sent him a telepathic message. Senior brother Shin, that kid has left the 100 Herb Garden. Good, very good. Shin Yushu raised his head and drank it all in one gulp, then threw down the wine cup and flew away. Everyone looked at each other, not knowing what had happened. In the 100 Herb Cave, Ruan Yaozhu slightly frowned. This Shin Yushu is too much. The 9-colored deer transformed into a human form and laid horizontally in the basket, its delicate legs swinging back and forth. It lazily said, "He is afraid of being expelled from the 100 Herb Garden, so he wants to stake it all on one throw." Ruan Yaozhu sighed. He has been in the 100 Herb Garden for so many years, even if he doesn't have any merits, he has still worked hard. As long as he restrains himself and works seriously, how could I be so heartless? Hee, although you both cultivate the natural heavenly book, the direction is very different. What you see is the growth of all living things. The heavens have the virtue of caring for all living things, using benevolence to shepherd all living things. This is the disposition of a king. He spent untold hardships to climb to this step. What he sees is the struggle of all living things, so he does his utmost to exclude those who are a threat to him. He still wants to get more sunlight and rain from you. This is the disposition of the common people. But cultivation methods are dead in the end, and people are alive. We have long surpassed the so-called king and people of the common people of the common people. Junior brother Li is also not from the royal family, but he has great ambitions, determination, and decisiveness, surpassing me. That kid is a freak, I beg you, don't praise him anymore. From Shin Yushu's point of view, of course you would expel him from the 100 Herb Garden. No matter how benevolent a king is, the common people are still skeptical. Besides, who would tolerate someone who wants to harm their own cultivation staying by their side? You have always been too easy to talk to, you should have ruthlessly beaten him long ago. But this is also good, at least he will not be a hindrance to you, much safer than that kid. No, I have to stop him. He still hasn't done anything. Could it be that you have finally learned to use your identity as a direct disciple to suppress people? The 9-colored deer teased. At least I have to remind junior brother Li, you want to see him? Nonsense. Chapter 1405. The deer's eyes flickered with a rare cold light, containing both admonishment and warning. Ruan Yaozhu could only say, "Fine, I won't show myself, but I want to ask eldest Marshal sister to help me keep an eye on them. They are all people of 100 Herb Garden, how can I sit idly by?" Although Li Qingshan was good at fighting, Wanxiang sect was a place that paid attention to seniority. If he fought with an inner disciple in Wanxiang City, he would suffer greatly. She blamed herself for indulging Shin Yushu too much. Now that he was going to harm a good person, she definitely wouldn't let it go. Eldest Marshal sister. The 9-colored deer revealed a strange expression. Although it could understand Ruan Yaozhu's thoughts, letting that person interfere could cause trouble. Ruan Yaozhu also felt it was inappropriate, but she insisted, even if it was junior Marshal brother Li instead of junior Marshal sister Li, I would do the same. The 9-colored deer saw her determined expression and knew it was useless to persuade her. Fine, Fine, do as you wish. He thought, this is also good, that person is much more powerful than me and has that kind of relationship with Yaozhu. Once he feels that the brat is a threat, he definitely won't let it go. I don't care what a blockhead like you thinks. Heavy snow also fell on the ocean. As the frigid winds swept about, it danced about wildly. The space between the ocean and the sky was chaotic and hazy. Li Qingshan whistled through it. Shen Yushu followed behind him from a distance. His expression was somewhat sinister, no longer as gentle as usual. He was like a predator chasing his prey, wishing he could immediately kill Li Qingshan on the sea. However, he forcefully suppressed this thought. They were both disciples of Wanxiang sect, and killing each other was a taboo in the sect. If he killed Li Qingshan, he wouldn't be able to escape punishment. As for not being a match for Li Qingshan, he didn't even think about it. I was too careless that day and fell into his trap, not being able to use many of my methods. If I had gone all out from the start and used my Yin soul to cast spells, how could a nascent soul cultivator fight him? What right does a nascent soul cultivator have to exchange blows with him? I only hate that bitch Ruan Yaozhu for choosing that time to appear and humiliate me for nothing. He was full of resentment, but he did not care that Ruan Yaozhu had helped him hold onto his natal magic weapon, the 9 sections green bamboo staff. And so many years of kindness. All of a sudden, Li Qingshan stopped and stood on the stormy sea. Could it be that I've been discovered? Chen Yushu felt a chill in his heart and he quickly stopped. There was a faint trace of fear in his heart. In the 100 Herb Garden. It had been over 100 years since he had participated in a fight. Impossible! My cultivation of the nature heavenly tome excels in concealing my aura. He definitely won't be able to find me. Even if they find out, what can they do to me? Indeed, Li Qingshan did not notice him. Even if he did, he would not take it to heart. After all, he was just a petty person. What made him stop was a shining star in the boundless void, a brand new world. He had 2 mirror images. One of them was the world god of the 5 continents world, while the other accompanied the void-devouring beast as it traversed through the void. Flying to a new world, he had been waiting. After a long journey, Deep Blue Little Fatty finally arrived in front of the star. Without his orders, it could not overcome its instincts and devour its own kind. It could only approach to the extreme. Li Qingshan walked out of its abyss-like mouth and looked around. He could clearly see the continents and oceans under the cotton-like clouds. This world was much smaller than the 5 continents world, but it was much larger than the original small world. It was probably a small world that could accommodate one heavenly tribulation. Even if devouring it could not allow the 5 continents world to evolve immediately, it could also expand by a lot. It gave confidence to all the cultivators of the 5 continents world. He did not immediately order Deep Blue Little Fatty to do so. There were billions of living beings in this new world. He needed the heaven-climbing vine. There was only one heaven-climbing vine, and it had always been connected to the human realm. This was to prevent any changes in the situation and leave a way out for Little and the others. He held his chin and thought for a while. He decided to pull the heaven-climbing vine out of the human realm and devour the new world first. After such a long time, the Myriad Phenomenon sect did not have any reaction. After all, Chuolong was not dead. Even if he stayed in the sect, there was still a life lamp. It would definitely not be extinguished. This new world was too big. It should not take long for the devouring to be completed. When he connected the heaven-climbing vine to the 5 continents world and Deep Blue Little Fatty, he immediately started devouring the new world. In the new world, all living beings looked up to it. A month ago, a dark blue giant star appeared in the night sky. It kept growing bigger and could be seen clearly even in the daytime. At this moment, it finally covered the whole sky. It gave people the illusion that the sky was clear for miles. However, there were no sun, moon, or stars. The fear of the end of the world had pervaded the air for too long. At this moment, there was a strange tranquility. All they had to do now was to accept their fate. No one would ever be able to forget this scene. A black crack appeared in the sky and suddenly covered the entire sky. Li Qingshan heaved a sigh of relief. It would be great if he could have such power in the human realm. He smiled and continued forward. When he arrived at the myriad phenomenon city, he went straight to the sky. As soon as he entered the city, the female cultivator who led the way for him last time was waiting for him. "Senior brother Li, the spirit venerable asked me to bring you up." Li Qingshan was slightly surprised. "Senior brother? Senior brother, you've improved by leaps and bounds on the myriad phenomenon list. You've already surpassed me." The female cultivator smiled warmly and spoke gently. Compared to the last time, she was a completely different person. When she first joined the sect, she was only a servant. It took her hundreds of years to become a nascent soul cultivator and become a disciple. She then found a job in the sky. But this, senior brother Li, in front of her was not only a disciple as soon as he joined the sect, but he also rose by almost 1,000 ranks on the myriad phenomenon list in a short period of time. He was even summoned by Spirit Venerable Gui Hai twice. It would not take long for him to become a disciple. How could she not take care of him? Myriad phenomenon list? Li Qingshan had never heard of such a thing. "Senior brother, don't you know? It's no wonder. You just joined the sect not long ago. You're really a genius." The female cultivator walked side by side with him. She talked and smiled as they walked. After listening to her explanation, Li Qingshan realized that the myriad phenomenon sect actually had such a magical place. He had to go and take a look later. After presenting the book this time, wouldn't his ranking rise even more? He didn't enter the city just to present the book. As a disciple, he could receive many benefits, such as cave abodes, dharma treasures, mounts, and so on. Yuan Yaozhu brought him to the 100 Herb Garden the last time he left the city, so he didn't have time to receive them. Dharma treasures and mounts could be converted into bookmarks even if he didn't need them. But a cave abode was a must. He couldn't let Little and the others be in danger. But thinking about it, the cave abode given by the myriad phenomenon sect wouldn't be much better. He wanted a large villa on the level of a true dragon cave abode, not a random, suitable house. But he didn't know how much the house price was here. But it didn't matter. With Spirit Venerable Gui Hai, he could afford it no matter how expensive it was. To be continued. Chapter 1406. What? The quality is too poor. Take a closer look. Li Qingshan held a brass lot as he said indignantly to Spirit Venerable Gui Hai. After putting in so much effort, he only obtained this much. This was very different from what he imagined. Spirit Venerable Gui Hai swept his gaze at the jade slip again and actually took back a mystic wood lot from Li Qingshan's hand. Li Qingshan was enraged. These bookmarks added up were not even enough for a single green jade lot. This old bastard was not pockmarked but a scam. Spirit Venerable Gui Hai suddenly asked, "Where did you get these books from?" Li Qingshan rolled his eyes. It was meaningless to lie in front of this old bastard, so he decided not to answer. Spirit Venerable Gui Hai said earnestly, "Don't be indignant. The quality of the books you brought this time is much worse compared to the previous time. I have never misjudged the value of books." Yes, I was wrong. Li Qingshan thought about it and had no choice but to admit it. The books that he had brought last time were all exquisite works that had been washed over thousands of years. This time, however, they were the creations of a group of money-seeking people in just a few short years. Although they had been carefully selected, the quality of the books was naturally not the same as before. This shortcut was indeed not that easy to take. "Forget it, I'll find another way." Just as he was about to bid farewell and leave, never to return again, Spirit Venerable Gui Hai took out another green jade lot and handed it to Li Qingshan. What was this? Giving a carrot after a stick? Li Qingshan asked curiously, "Is this a consolation prize?" Spirit Venerable Gui Hai said, "This is the deposit." Li Qingshan said, "Didn't you find the books bad?" Spirit Venerable Gui Hai said with a faint smile, "Just because it's bad this time doesn't mean it'll be bad next time. I left some comments in the jade slip. Study them well. I believe it will be better in the future." Li Qingshan's heart palpitated. These books were not written by him, so what was there to study? He suddenly realized that there was a huge flaw in this matter from the beginning. Novels were indeed fictional, but they were definitely based on reality. Spirit Venerable Guihai was an existence that could infer a lot of information with just 1 or 2 sentences. Looking at his half-smiling expression, it was as if he had seen through all causes and effects. These novels may be inadvertently. Many things had already been exposed. The so-called shortcuts were mostly dangerous. A single misstep would cause one to fall into the abyss. His body would be smashed to pieces. What a blunder! Li Qingshan decisively returned the azure jade lot to Spirit Sovereign Guihai. Sorry, I don't have any more. Spirit Sovereign Guihai had already turned to leave. What's done cannot be undone. If you can't bring more and better books, you'll be deceiving your superiors and will be punished severely. Li Qingshan felt a headache coming on. Spirit Venerable Guihai's meaning was, it's too late for regrets now. Punk, you have already entered a den of thieves. If you don't satisfy me, don't even think of leaving unscathed. Spirit Venerable Guihai suddenly stopped. Do you want to know the secret to longevity? Mind your own business. Li Qingshan frowned and walked out of the sky. He took a deep breath of the cold air and his brows relaxed. He did not regret it. This was because he had no other choice. From the moment he refused to leave the Myriad Phenomenon sect, he was taking a risk. He had to take this dangerous path. It was not necessarily a bad thing to let Spirit Venerable Guihai understand the situation. At the very least, it could reduce his suspicions. Humans were always friendlier to things they could understand and control. Through Spirit Venerable Guihai's attitude today, one could see a thing or two. Furthermore, he did not have any ill intentions towards the Myriad Phenomenon sect. He came here to cultivate. Everything he did was beneficial to the Myriad Phenomenon sect's development. He believed that Spirit Venerable Guihai would only mind your own business if he saw all of this. Even if it was the worst outcome. In the future, his battle with Chua Long would be exposed before he joined the Myriad Phenomenon sect. It would not be considered a fratricide. Furthermore, he did not kill Chua Long in the end. It was just a personal grudge over benefits. He believed that when that day came, he would be an inherited teachings disciple. There was no need for the Myriad Phenomenon sect to deal with an existing inherited teachings disciple for the sake of an inherited teachings disciple who had fallen into the fiend domain. All in all, his luck was pretty good. Just as Spirit Venerable Guihai said, just because it wasn't good this time doesn't mean the next time won't be good. Cloud Void City had just been built, and everything was still in its infancy. Since an experienced reader, like Spirit Venerable Guihai, was willing to believe that the next time would be better, he had no reason to doubt it. This shortcut could still be taken. Standing on the high platform and looking out, Myriad Phenomenon City was covered in white snow. It was decorated with lanterns and colored banners, giving off a festive atmosphere. There was a faint fragrance of wine in the cold wind, whetting his appetite. Following the fragrance, he found a restaurant. He first tasted a cup of every kind of wine and chose the best one. He poured all the bookmarks he had obtained from the book offering into the metal gourd. After taking a few mouthfuls, he felt a surge of heat rolling in his stomach. He immediately felt happy. Recalling the Myriad Phenomenon list that the female cultivator had mentioned, he went over out of curiosity. The square was packed with people and carriages. The sounds of chatter, laughter, and hawkers rose and fell, filling the sky. Amidst the surging crowd, Li Qingshan stood motionlessly in front of the Myriad Phenomenon list. He turned a deaf ear to the hustle and bustle as he looked straight at the top of the list. The heat in his stomach turned cold as he felt a sense of danger. The first on the Myriad Phenomenon list, Lin Xian. Or rather, Chu Tian. So he was the eldest senior brother of the Myriad Phenomenon sect. In that instant, the past flashed past, and many questions were answered. Chu Tian was the reincarnation of the eldest senior brother of the Myriad Phenomenon sect, Lin Xian. His unparalleled talent came from this. After all, he had been a human sovereign in his previous life. Although he was not a true reincarnation of a deva, there were not many deva who could be compared to him even in the heavenly Tao. Qian Rongji's sky-climbing vine must have come from him as well. Back then, he was still the stupid Chu Tian. The reason why she was able to gain Chualong's trust and successfully counterattack was probably because she had impersonated Lin Xian. Only after coming to the Myriad Phenomenon sect did he understand how precious a heavenly book was. It was a peerless cultivation technique that could help one become a human immortal. Lin Xian was able to casually take out a heavenly book of Cloud Furnace to thank Ru Exin. How generous was that? However, he had even more questions. Why did Lin Xian reincarnate? First of all, it was definitely not to cooperate with Chualong's plan. He also found Chualong's name on the Myriad Phenomenon ranking, and it happened to be the last among the direct disciples. How could the strongest cooperate with the weakest, let alone make such a huge sacrifice? The 9 states was not worth Lin Xian giving up everything. Moreover, Chualong was determined to have the 9 states as his territory. Lin Xian could not monopolize it. To the Myriad Phenomenon sect, it was not worth it to trade a direct disciple for a grotto heaven. Moreover, it was the eldest senior brother of the Myriad Phenomenon sect. Then there was only one explanation. Lin Xian's lifespan was almost up, and he had to reincarnate. If Letian could make a bet with Oxhead Bien, then with Lin Xian's identity and cultivation, he could naturally do something. Thus, he successfully reincarnated into the 9 states and brought a sky-climbing vine with him. Even if he reincarnated as a dog, he could quickly become a spirit. As for why he did not reincarnate into the mortal realm, there were probably a few reasons. The mortal realm was too vast, and it was not easy to find. If it could be easily found, the Myriad Phenomenon sect was probably not without enemies. Moreover, in the mortal realm, low-level cultivators were too weak, and there was no guarantee of their safety. It was different in the 9 states. With Chu Tian's talent and the help of the sky-climbing vine, he could quickly make a name for himself and protect himself. Moreover, the system of the 100 schools of thought seemed to be tailor-made for him. Lin Xian had a close relationship with Chualong. Chualong must have received a lot of help from this eldest senior brother, for him to be able to reach the level of human sovereign so quickly. Lin Xian must have been preparing since then. With this relationship, Chualong could be his guide and help him recover his memory and cultivation as soon as possible so that he could return to the Myriad Phenomenon sect. Unfortunately, man proposes, God disposes. Before he recovered his memory and cultivation, he was bitten by the poisonous snake, Qian Rongji, and almost lost his life. Although it was a blessing in disguise, and he recovered some of his memory, he knew from the incident with the Banyan Tree King that his memory must be incomplete. The spirit of a severely injured foundation-building cultivator could not bear all the memories of a human sovereign. A random scroll of the heavenly book contained a vast amount of information. In order to reincarnate and cultivate again, he probably prepared more than one scroll of the heavenly book. In addition to the large amount of experience in cultivation, the memories left behind in other areas were even more limited. Chapter 1407. This was not good news to Li Qingshan. It meant there were even more unpredictable variables. If it was just a hui long as his life lamp was not extinguished, no one would find it strange even if he did not appear for 8 to 10 years. This was the lifestyle of cultivators. However, if it involved a reincarnated senior brother of the Myriad Phenomenon sect, then things would be hard to say. Who knew how many friends and enemies he had in the Myriad Phenomenon sect? Countless people were eyeing the true dragon abode. Perhaps even the 2 sect masters of the Myriad Phenomenon sect would pay special attention. Little and the others have been staying in the true dragon abode. Although it is beneficial for cultivation, it is too unsafe. I have to change places as soon as possible, even if it is just a little bit worse. Li Qingshan made up his mind. However, Deep Blue Little Fatty still needed some time to devour the new world. If he pulled out the sky-climbing vine now, who knew how many people would die? Nothing happened after so long, it can't be such a coincidence. Li Qingshan suppressed the trace of unease in his heart and continued to head to the Spirit Beast Garden to collect his mount. However, a Mahist master once said, "If you are worried about something happening, then it is very likely to happen. North of Myriad Phenomenon City, 18,000 li. The wind howled and the waves raged, slamming against the black cliff again and again. The snowstorm danced and rumbled as it swept past the cliff. A black stone tablet stood on the cliff, overlooking the raging sea. For large words were carved on it, Xianming Cave Abode. If Li Qingshan was here, he would definitely be able to tell that these words were written by the same person as the true dragon abode. Behind the stone tablet was a mountain. The mountain was tens of thousands of li tall, piercing through the clouds as if it was connected to the sky. There was no peak at the top, only a deep abyss that spanned dozens of li. It was like a black eye embedded in the sea of clouds, staring at the endless sky. The abyss was so deep that even light could not illuminate it. A lucky snowflake was swept up by the storm and sent above the clouds, but unfortunately fell into the abyss. It had a crystalline color and a hexagonal shape. Like a stray spirit, it wandered around hesitantly, drifting lightly. After drifting for an unknown period of time, he finally reached the bottom of the abyss. Without a sound, a faint ripple appeared on the black and transparent surface of the lake, melting away its sparkling color and hexagonal shape. The ripples should have quickly calmed down, but the surface of the lake gradually surged. "It's about time. Lin Xian, have you failed?" A deep and powerful voice muttered to itself. A pair of dragon eyes suddenly opened in the black lake. The dark body at the bottom of the lake suddenly moved. Its black scales rippled like flowing water. Its 5 claws stretched out and dug into the craggy rocks. It propped up its huge body, raised its head, and roared towards the sky. Boom! It was as if a 1,000-year-old volcano had been resurrected in the blink of an eye. What gushed out wasn't lava or fire, but a raging wave that weighed tens of millions of tons. An angry dragon emerged from the surging waves. At this moment, the majestic roar of the dragon could be heard, scattering the layers of clouds for thousands of miles. The surging waves turned into clouds that surrounded a gold-eyed profound dragon and soared into the sky. The dragon head was headed in the direction of the true dragon cave, separated by a transparent crystal wall. Li Qingshan focused all of his attention on a strange fish egg with wings. All he saw was it fly around in the water, kicking up a series of splashes. It seemed to possess some kind of strange power. The description on the sign on the side was as follows: Glory fish egg, adult glory fish. Fish body, bird wings, sound like mandarin ducks, can fly and swim, and is good at water. Legend has it that it is related to the Kuan Peng by blood, but it hasn't been proven. It's worth 7 brass sticks, buy 2 get 1 free. I can give it to Yenying to play with. Li Qingshan clicked his tongue in wonder. He continued forward and arrived in front of another iron cage. Inside was a big brown bear. Its eyes were closed as if it was sleeping, and it was hugging a wooden stake in its arms. The sign beside it showed that this was a bear cub. Rather than saying it was sleeping, it was more accurate to say that it hadn't even opened its eyes. Its price was much more expensive than those glory fish eggs. The bear cub rolled around in its sleep, and the wooden stake in its arms shattered with a crack. Even a cub is so fierce. I wonder how fierce it will be when it matures. No wonder it needs such a thick iron cage. Li Qingshan continued forward. Iron-eating beasts are also known as black and white bears. They can eat iron and bamboo, and are intelligent. This is good, this is good. Li Qingshan was like a little kid visiting a zoo for the first time. He was so excited that he wanted to clap his hands. This spiritual beast garden was really too fun. It was somewhat similar to the herb garden. They were both grotto heavens, and the inside was like a natural park. There were all kinds of strange and rare beasts for people to choose from. Whether they flew in the sky, ran on the ground, or swam in the water, there was everything. Some spiritual beasts could fly in the sky, run on the ground, and even swim in the water. Many of them had only been heard of in legends, and some were even unheard of. Senior Marshal Brother, have you chosen? This iron-eating beast was caught by our Senior Marshal Brother Sima from the Spiritual Beast Garden with great difficulty. It's very easy to raise. All you need is bamboo and iron. If you want to raise a bear cub, you'll have to buy at least a few thousand kilograms of meat a month. That's not a small amount. The iron-eating beast is also a bear, and when it gets fierce, it's not much worse than a bear cub. It's even more human-like, and it's said that it can control one's mind. Look at its eyes. The female attendant in charge of reception introduced it very enthusiastically. She had already followed Li Qingshan all the way and had almost walked through the entire spiritual beast garden. She didn't reveal the slightest bit of impatience. Li Qingshan followed her finger and looked at the two dark circles under its eyes. The iron-eating beast also looked back at him. Perhaps because of the Qilin's bloodline, it seemed to be very close to him. It made him inexplicably have a strong urge to buy one to raise. However, this was choosing a mount, not a pet, so it was better not to waste a bookmark. Thus, he shook his head. Forget it, I'd better convert it into a bookmark. I like to walk by myself. The female attendant said, Senior Marshal Brother, you're wrong. The so-called mount is just a saying. Which one of us doesn't know how to ride the clouds and the wind? Why must we ride on a beast? However, a mount is not only related to a cultivator's life, it's a lifelong companion that shares weal and woe. There's only one benefit that I can't not mention. It can greatly extend a cultivator's lifespan. What do you mean? Humans are the most intelligent of all creatures. It's a pity that their lifespan is too short, unlike the demon race who can easily live for tens of thousands of years. Thus, they have to learn from each other's strengths to make up for their shortcomings. They raise demonic beasts and sign a contract of alliance to extend their lifespan. Do you know Senior Marshal Brother Letion from the Chaotic Life Mill? Li Qingshan said, sigh. However, I heard that he made a bet with Oxhead Bien on the Yellow Springs Road. The female attendant smiled mysteriously. That's just a legend. Oxhead Bien isn't that easy to fool. Have you seen that three-legged golden toad? Li Qingshan nodded. Three-legged golden toad is the best at extending one's lifespan. I'm afraid Senior Marshal Brother Letion only managed to stall for some time. It was the three-legged golden toad that helped him hang on to his last breath. Li Qingshan had all kinds of god-fiend bloodlines, so his lifespan was very long. He had never considered this problem before. Furthermore, lifespan actually didn't mean much to him. If he couldn't reach the 9 heavens in time, Brother Ox's enemies probably wouldn't let him off. However, through Lin Xian's matter, he could feel how important lifespan was to human cultivators. Normal nascent soul cultivators only had a lifespan of 1,000 years. It was far from being comparable to demon kings of the same cultivation level. He looked at the adorable iron-eating beast. Sigh, these demonic beasts are really pitiful to be used like this. The female attendant glared at him. Senior Marshal Brother, you can't say that. The people in our spirit beast garden are all very caring. No matter how intelligent demonic beasts are, they are still demonic beasts. In the end, they were just demonic beasts and could not be compared to humans. In the demonic beast path, only 1% of 10,000 glory fish eggs can become glory fish. Only one can grow and lay eggs. This adult fish will go through all kinds of elimination and escape from hunters. The chances of it cultivating into a demonic beast are even lower. What's the use of having a long lifespan? Humans are the most intelligent of all creatures. Not only do we give them a better environment, we take care of their food and daily life. We can also inspire their intelligence and teach them to cultivate, allowing them to step onto the path of cultivation. Only by cultivating will they have such a long lifespan. We treat them even better than our own fathers. They just take care of us and give us a portion of their lifespan. Isn't that fair? Li Qingshan could not help but laugh. This female attendant was rather interesting. Thinking of Spirit Sovereign Guihai and the 9-colored deer's grandeur, he, who was inferior to a deer and a tortoise, probably did not have the right to pity these demonic beasts. Even if one lived in this world, it was inevitable to be ridden. Furthermore, it was riding on a white mount. Just a few people would dare to make one work for them. It was better to live a carefree life with these mounts. Thinking back to when that bastard Chua Long wanted him to be a mount, it had truly infuriated him. Now, from the looks of it, it was not entirely an insult. Instead, it had the intention of promoting him. However, he had no interest in such a good thing where he was second to none. If it was Ruan Yao him. Oh, I'm sorry. I understand. However, I think it's best to change it to a bookmark. I already have a mount. The female attendant was flattered. She did not expect him to apologize to her. She could not help but blush as she asked shyly, "Senior Marshal Brother, what is your mount? Our spirit beast garden also provides all kinds of exquisite food. It's not expensive either. There's a set meal here. Raising a mount is a great knowledge. If there's anything you don't understand, I can help you take a look." The main business of the spirit beast garden was not selling spirit beasts. Instead, it was providing all kinds of related services. She was not afraid that Li Qingshan would not buy a mount. She was only afraid that Li Qingshan would not raise a mount. Oh, it's a phoenix. Li Qingshan used Li Fengyuan as an excuse again. He was considering when to bring him to the human realm to play. He did not allow others to ascend because he did not trust them. As the weakest of the 4 heavenly kings, Li Fengyuan was obviously not included in this list. He was not far from the 4th heavenly tribulation. He would definitely be a great help. Pretending to be a mount was not a bad idea. It was not worthwhile for him to ride him. It was only right for a son to carry his father once in a while. Phoenix. Phoenix? The female attendant was stunned. If the 3-legged golden toad was only good at prolonging one's life, the phoenix was good at nirvana rebirth. It was immortal and would be of great help to cultivators. Not to mention other benefits. However, the phoenix had a reserved and arrogant nature. How could it be a mount for someone? Senior Marshal Brother, you are not joking, right? Li Qingshan said, "No. Is there anything to feed the phoenix here? Forget it, he likes to drink wine and eat meat." Drink wine and eat meat. The female attendant was already sure that Li Qingshan was bragging. However, she did not want to expose him. She smiled and said, "Senior Marshal Brother, bring it to our spirit beast garden in the future. I have seen Senior Marshal Brother Lin Xian's golden-eyed profound dragon once. However, I have never seen a phoenix before." Sigh, this Senior Marshal Brother was so amiable. It was a pity that he liked to brag. Well said, well said. Li Qingshan's heart stirred. That trace of uneasiness that was suppressed suddenly became clear. Chapter 1408. Chualong, come out? Along with the dragon roars, a cloud descended from the sky and shrouded the sky above the dragon pool cave. Dragon scales and dragon body flew in the air, dragon claws and dragon horns appeared and disappeared. Suddenly, a huge dragon head appeared. Little and suddenly opened his eyes, which were clear and calm. He looked at Luo Ho Xiaoming and Gu Yenying quietly. Gu Yenying sighed, "We still can't avoid this. Qingshan has just retracted the sky-climbing vine. What a coincidence. Is it because of him?" Little and said lightly, "Impossible." Luo Ho Xiaoming said, "There is no such thing as dodging. Whether it is because of Qingshan or not, this is our problem." He closed his eyes and sensed, a true dragon that has gone through 6 heavenly tribulations is not easy to deal with. Gu Yenying stood up, "I'll try." The true dragon's arrival was like a mountain pressing down on them, cutting off their path of retreat and putting their lives on the line. Yet, the 3 of them did not panic at all, let alone fear or worry. The golden-eyed dragon roared, "If you don't come out, I'll break your cave immediately." Rumble. Thunder and lightning interweaved in the clouds, flickering indefinitely. "Senior, please calm down." Gu Yenying walked out of the cave and came to the peak of the mountain. She bowed and asked, "May I ask why you are looking for my emperor?" "For you." The golden-eyed dragon lowered his head and stared at Gu Yenying. Gu Yenying answered calmly, "I am the subordinate of my emperor, Chualong. I am here to guard the dragon pool cave." The golden-eyed dragon thought to himself, "If she is not a disciple of the nature sect, then she must have come from the underworld. This means that the sky-climbing vine has been successfully reattached." The dragon was slightly relieved. Initially, he could sense Lin Xian's safety clearly. However, after he reincarnated, even the life lamp he had left in the sect had been extinguished. All connections were severed and he could no longer sense Lin Xian anymore. Where is Chualong? Gu Yenying hesitated. Is he still in the 9 states? Gu Yenying didn't know the identity of the Golden Eye's profound dragon, but since she knew Chualong and didn't attack the cave abode directly, she could talk to him. Then I'll be straightforward. My emperor is indeed still in the 9 regions. When will he return? I'm not sure about that. Sighed. Gu Yenying looked worried. He sighed. Why are you sighing? The 9 states are unfortunate. First, they were invaded by the demonic domain, then by the hungry ghost realm. I wonder how they are doing now. You're lying, the gold-eyed profound dragon roared. Tens of thousands of lightning bolts shot out at the same time, as if the sky was falling and the earth was splitting. Gu Yenying was shocked even though she was separated by the magic circle. She folded her hands and bowed deeply. Everything I said is true. I dare not deceive you. Senior, please understand. His courage was not bad. Go find Sui Long for me. Tell him to come see me immediately. The golden-eyed profound dragon had only made a feint, but his opponent's reaction was surprisingly calm, causing him to feel a little embarrassed. He even felt a little worried. Could it be that the cultivators of the Jojo world were all of such high quality? That was too shocking. This was not normal. Gu Yenying said awkwardly, but my emperor asked me to guard the cave abode and cultivate. No buts. I'll give you 3 days. If he doesn't come in 3 days, I'll break into the cave abode and kill all of you. The gold-eyed profound dragon was full of killing intent. If Lin Xian had already met Chualong, but Chualong didn't dare to see him, then the problem must be with Chualong. He had to find out the truth. Gu Yenying returned to the dragon pool abode. Prepare for battle or flee. If we fight, we'll die. If we flee, we won't be able to. This is a familiar feeling. Luo Ho Xiaoming smiled. I've been wondering if there's something wrong with the world. There's only one way left. The 3 of them looked at each other. They said in unison, Tribulation Transcendence. The 3 of them were on the verge of the 4th heavenly tribulation. Unlike Li Qingshan, they didn't have to think too much. It was only because they were in danger that they didn't want to cause too much of a commotion. That was why they had been enduring. After this period of cultivation, they had already gotten used to the laws of the human realm. They could go through the tribulation anytime. Gu Yenying said, Together? Little Lin said, Together. The moment the heavenly tribulation started, the dragon outside would definitely be alerted. It might start attacking the cave abode immediately. There was no need to hide anymore. The gold-eyed profound dragon was in deep thought when he suddenly heard a special thunder. It was very weak, but it was different from the thunder he caused. It contained a trace of heavenly might. Looking over, tribulation clouds gathered in all directions. It was like an ambush had been set up on all sides. The heavenly might was vast. Tribulation lightning? The gold-eyed profound dragon instantly realized that something was wrong. Why did Lin Xian have to go through the tribulation the moment he arrived? Chualong only needed to come out and explain. There must be a huge change. He shouted angrily, Ant, how dare you bully me? Originally, it would take some effort to break through this dragon pool cave abode. Now, I can make use of this heavenly tribulation to raise this place to the ground. In a split second, the giant dragon danced in the sky. Wind and thunder surged, shaking the world. Li Qingshan left the spirit beast garden. He still felt uneasy. In this world, the person who had the closest relationship with Lin Xian was undoubtedly that gold-eyed profound dragon. It was impossible for him to return to the dragon pool cave abode immediately. He could work hard to be a pioneer, but that was all. Luckily, they could all take charge. I hope it will be fine. Li Qingshan picked up the metal gourd and gulped down a few mouthfuls of wine. Suddenly, he felt that he was being watched. He turned around. There was no one around, but the feeling of being watched did not disappear. Instead, it became stronger. Shen Yushu held his breath and hid behind a tree. Did he notice me? Impossible. How did he notice me? Why should I hide? He followed Li Qingshan all the way to Wanxiang City. While secretly monitoring Li Qingshan's whereabouts, he thought of a way to deal with him until he was outside the spirit beast garden. If I directly go out and provoke him, if he dares to make a move on me, I will purposely not hide. He will not be able to escape punishment. No, if this spreads out, it will be too embarrassing. Right at this moment, he heard Li Qingshan's footsteps approaching. His heart suddenly jumped, and he felt an indescribable panic. Li Qingshan raised his head and widened his eyes. He saw a rabbit squatting quietly on the tree. It had black fur, long pointed ears, and fiery red eyes. It was staring at him, or rather, staring at the wine gourd in his hand. A rabbit climbing a tree? This kind of thing was originally worth being surprised. But after strolling around the spirit beast garden, he wouldn't be surprised even if a sow could climb a tree. He rubbed his chin and pondered, it probably escaped from the spirit beast garden. No matter how comfortable it is to be a mount, it still yearns for freedom. The black rabbit actually nodded its head. Hey, it can understand human language. As expected, it escaped from the spirit beast garden. Li Qingshan noticed its gaze. He raised the iron gourd in his hand and asked with a smile, "Do you want to drink?" Did rabbits drink wine? Of course, after going around the 100-herb garden, this kind of thing wasn't strange at all. With a whoosh, the black rabbit jumped down from the tree at an astonishing speed. It hugged the iron gourd and drank. Li Qingshan noticed that its four limbs had sharp claws. Of course, this wasn't strange at all. However, it was quite interesting to watch rabbits drink wine. TSK, you haven't drunk enough yet. This little stomach is quite good at holding. But soon he couldn't laugh anymore. When he picked up the iron gourd, he felt that it was empty. It didn't seem strange that a rabbit could drink so much wine. Not strange, my ass. Li Qingshan grabbed the rabbit's ears and lifted it up. Bastard, give me back my wine. The black rabbit stared at him with a pair of fiery red eyes. It rubbed its stomach with its two front paws and lazily burped. Li Qingshan was furious and waved his fist fiercely. At this moment, the waitress who led the way for him came out of the door and wanted to send Li Qingshan off. She felt that this senior brother who loved to brag was quite interesting. He had a high cultivation base and a good character. Especially he was also good-looking. Suddenly seeing this scene, she couldn't help but be stunned. I was just scaring it, Li Qingshan said embarrassedly. A big man bullying a little rabbit was too degrading. In the words of the spirit beast garden, it was no love. The waitress didn't say anything and immediately returned to the spirit beast garden. Li Qingshan looked up to the sky and sighed. Was it easy for him to earn some bookmarks? It wasn't easy to collect some books for the old tortoise, but it was all gone in an instant. It was equivalent to all the accumulated harvest of these days falling into the stomach of this damn rabbit. He said fiercely, "You drank my wine. I will never let you go. Say, do you like fried or steamed?" The black rabbit didn't seem to understand human words and pretended to comb its fur. The waitress hid back into the spirit beast garden and covered her mouth. That can't be Big Senior Sister's black fur roar, right? Chapter 1409. Li Qingshan shuddered and suddenly looked back in the direction of the Dragon Pool cave abode. He frowned and thought, did something really happen? It can't be so coincidental, right? He had an urge to pull the sky-climbing vine back, but he endured it in the end. He was not so callous to disregard the lives of billions of living beings just because of a slight sense of danger. Otherwise, he would never have cultivated the Qilin longevity policy. He was only thinking and did not notice that the eyes of the black rabbit in his hand were turning redder and redder. Its originally minuscule aura was withdrawn as though it had fallen into a huge whirlpool. When it was withdrawn to the extreme, it would explode at a terrifying speed. Heh, my rabbit has a very bad temper, especially after drinking. Looks like I don't have to do anything. Somewhere in Wanxiang City, a certain senior sister's eyes shone with blood and fire as she muttered, "Hey, rabbit, don't cause too much damage to Wanxiang City. Otherwise, I'll deduct it from your wine bill." Li Qingshan shook his head. What was lost was already lost. There was no need to get angry at a rabbit. It would only make him look petty. Look at you. You don't even have any meat on you. It's not even enough for me to eat. Since I'm the one treating you, you can only blame it on your bad luck. Go. Just as he threw the black rabbit on the ground, it leaped back with a swoosh. Furthermore, it squatted on top of his head and the redness in its eyes faded a little. Ah, you're asking for a yard after being given an inch. Get down here. Li Qingshan reached out to grab it. The black rabbit jumped on top of his head and landed steadily on top of his head every time he missed. As expected of a spirit beast. Li Qingshan was shocked. Although the rabbit was not serious, it was quite extraordinary for it to be able to dodge his grabs consecutively. Li Qingshan was even more impressed. Forget it, since we drank the same gourd of wine, we can be considered drinking buddies. If you stay in Wanxiang City and get captured back to the Spirit Beast Garden, you will inevitably become someone's mount. What bullshit, love. Beasts without a control is the greatest joy. Even if you are hunted and eaten, your life will not be in vain. Since you want to be free, I'll be a good person to the end. Let's get you out of here. He reached out to grab it again, and sure enough, it stopped jumping and obediently let him grab it. It blinked its red eyes. It regained its original luster. Li Qingshan put it in his wide sleeve pocket and strode forward. He didn't know that he was on the edge of an extremely dangerous situation. Facing a demon emperor-level black-furred sky-gazing roar was no easier than facing a gold-eyed dragon. The woman said indignantly, "Humph! What kind of temper is this? You want to die just because I touched your ear? A single drinking buddy has bought you over." He took out a red gourd that was 10 times larger than Li Qingshan's metal gourd from his back. He gulped down a mouthful of alcohol and wiped his mouth. However, it's not good to use a drinking buddy as a meal. Not long after Li Qingshan left, Chen Yushu slowly came out from behind the tree and said with a sneer, "Sure enough, you have a lot of guts to actually dare to steal the Spiritual Beast Garden's spiritual beasts. You just entered and you already learned to be a thief. Senior Sister Ruan must be blind to appoint such a person." Using the heavenly book of nature, he blended his aura with the surrounding environment and followed Li Qingshan from afar to the Spiritual Treasures Square. Seeing him disappear from the Spiritual Treasures Square, he already understood that he was going to receive the various benefits of becoming a disciple. First receive a mount in the Spiritual Beast Garden, then go to the Spiritual Treasures Square to receive a talisman. Then, next, it would definitely be the Heaven Mansion department. He immediately came up with a plan. There was no need for him to appear personally. He didn't have to personally come out and make this Li Qingshan stumble. If he also stole the spiritual beasts in the Spiritual Beast Garden, he could forget about staying in the 100 Herb Garden. Even Ruan Yaozhu would have nothing to say. Li Qingshan came to the Spiritual Treasures Square not only to receive the benefits. As usual, he first took a look around. The Spiritual Treasures Square was like a museum. All kinds of talismans and weapons were displayed on the exhibition stand. There was also a simple introduction written on the side. There was no lack of powerful talismans, but as a disciple, the benefits he could receive were only at the level of ordinary talismans in the 9 regions. It was even inferior to those powerful talismans in the 9 regions. However, it was free anyway, so there was nothing to be picky about. He didn't even care about those powerful talismans. He, who cultivated the 9 transformations of demons and gods, never relied on external objects. He directly exchanged the benefits for bookmarks and kept them in his pocket. "Can you repair weapons?" The attendant smiled and said, "Of course. May I ask what kind of weapon you want to repair?" Li Qingshan casually took out the last Madflower saber. A sharp and cold aura filled the hall, making the attendant's hair stand on end. However, he took a step forward. His eyes were shining, and he looked like he had seen a prey. "It's a sure divine weapon. Is there a weapon soul?" The blade was full of cracks and damage, but it revealed a fierce aura of surviving hundreds of battles. It immediately attracted the attention of everyone around. Sure, divine weapons didn't have as many changes as human talismans, but they were known for their sturdiness and sharpness. What kind of fierce battle did it go through to be so damaged? Li Qingshan asked with concern, "Can it be repaired? Could this be the last Madflower saber?" A male cultivator with a square face, wide ears, and a loud voice walked over. The badge on his chest showed that he was an inner disciple. Li Qingshan said, "Yes, how did Senior Martial Brother know? I can recite the weapon manuals of the Path of Azuras, weapons of war, like the back of my hand. Although I know the answer, I still have to ask, are you selling this saber?" Li Qingshan shook his head. "As expected, you are just a nascent soul cultivator, yet you are able to gain the recognition of the Shura weapon soul. You are really something. It's damaged so badly that we must use the Shura sacrificial altar. It won't be cheap to repair it. How many bookmarks do you want? I'll erase the rest for you." 8 green jade bookmarks. Without hesitation, Li Qingshan said, "I'll repair it." The Shura sacrificial altar was indeed amazing. Li Qingshan only waited for half a day and he returned with a brand new last Madflower saber. The saber's blade hummed, and the soul said, "Kid, you finally entered the 6 paths of reincarnation. Why didn't you go to the path of Azura? What a loser. I will definitely go there in the future. Keep your word, don't go back on it. And, thank you." Li Qingshan smiled and said, "You're welcome." One of the Grand Senior Martial Sisters laughed and said, "Interesting to be able to gain the recognition of the Shura weapon soul. No wonder Shin Yushu was no match for him. With this saber in hand, he can challenge most of the inner disciples." She touched her waist, and there was also a blood-red saber there. She was very sure that a person who could gain the recognition of the Shura weapon soul was not a coward. Then why did he stay in the herb garden? With such a powerful weapon, wouldn't it be better for him to go out and fight? Could it be that he has ulterior motives towards my Juzi? Alright, for the sake of the Shura weapon soul, I have one more reason not to kill you. 998 more. Chapter 1410. A mystical dragon was rolling in the vast pool of lightning, its body covered in tens of thousands of lightning bolts. It was so dazzling that one could not look at it directly. How can the fourth heaven's tribulation be so powerful? How can the fourth heaven's tribulation be so powerful? The golden-eyed mystical dragon was also shocked. With his help, the tribulation lightning became even more violent and turbulent. Occasionally, 1 or 2 lightning bolts would hit the dragon's scales. It actually felt a little painful, so it gradually retreated from the center of the pool of lightning. Ignorant bastards. How dare you go through the tribulation in front of me? You really don't know what's good for you. It's a pity that they'll definitely turn into ashes in the tribulation lightning. I won't be able to ask what's going on down there. Little and wore the 3 burial robe, which danced in the lightning bolts and gradually became tattered. He put his palms together and wrapped them around the skull prayer beads. He chanted scriptures. His flesh was torn apart by the lightning, revealing his white bones. Gu Yenying spread her wings and hugged herself like a bird in winter, silently enduring the harsh cold. Only Luo Ho Xiaoming was the calmest. He opened his chest and let the lightning strike him. Relying on the Azura immortal body and the Rahu clan's bloodline and physique, he stood in the rumbling lightning bolts with his head held high. He laughed and said, "How satisfying." They were not ordinary demon kings or nascent soul cultivators. They had accumulated a lot of experience and were so powerful that they were not afraid of the lightning bolts. Suddenly, a lightning sword condensed in the void, dragging a string of lightning behind it. It slashed toward the weakest among the 3, Gu Yenying. Gu Yenying's heart skipped a beat. She felt that the power contained in this lightning sword was stronger than thousands of tribulation lightning bolts. However, she had never heard of a fourth heaven's tribulation encountering such a situation. Was it really exciting to go through the tribulation with these 2 monsters? The heaven's tribulation was the supreme law. It was locked by the heavenly secrets and could not be dodged. The only thing she could do was to be prepared to take it head-on. A white shadow flashed in front of her. Little and stood in front of her, his bony hands holding the Buddha-slaying sword tightly. He met the lightning sword. Boom! The lightning sword flew backward, and the 3 burial robe almost turned into ashes. Little and took a step back and half knelt on the ground. The Buddha slaying sword was full of cracks, and his white of bones were trembling. Even the samadhi flames of white bone in his eye sockets had become much dimmer. Why? Gu Yenying was surprised. She never thought that Little and would block this attack for her. Little and said, "Conserve your strength." Gu Yenying nodded solemnly. What they had to face was not only this lightning tribulation, but also a true dragon that was eyeing them covetously. It was true that their cultivation had improved greatly when they had just overcome the heavenly tribulation, but it was also when they were at their weakest. They could not afford to get tangled up in battle. Luo Ho Xiaoming's expression turned solemn as well. The tribulation thunder has condensed into a weapon. What a great honor! Tribulation lightning condensed into weapons. It would usually only appear after the 6th heavenly tribulation, specifically preventing people from becoming immortals. Using tens of thousands of tribulation lightning to condense a heavenly weapon, it could kill anyone who defied the heavens. Now, it was only the 4th heavenly tribulation, and yet it had appeared. Even if it was only a single one, it was still too terrifying. After the lightning sword was blocked by Little and its radiance only dimmed slightly. When it returned to the surging lightning pool, it immediately regained its original radiance. In fact, it was even more intense. Luo Ho Xiaoming said, "Let me do it." Little and said, "Conserve your strength too." Luo Ho Xiaoming immediately understood what she meant. He smiled and said, "As expected of the white bone inheritor. You can still be so calm at such a time. You are not the slightest bit affected by emotions. However, can you block it?" "If I can't block it, I will die." The chaotic soul bell rang rapidly. The sound of the bell was like a real substance, creating a whistling thunder. She swung her sword and faced the tribulation lightning sword. Boom! Thousands of lightning bolts shot out from the mountain peak, reflected in the pair of golden dragon eyes, and a hint of surprise flashed through them. Could it be that she could really survive this heavenly tribulation? But that would be for the best. He could just capture her and ask her about it. If he had known this would happen, he would not have expanded the heavenly tribulation. Sigh, he had slept for too long this time. He still had not woken up, and his brain was not working well. Lightning bolts shot out again, and thunder roared. Unknowingly, the lightning gradually dimmed, and the thunder became softer, but it still continued. I didn't think that she would really survive it. The golden eyes dragon flew through the air and stared at the dragon pool cave abode below. A strange bird cry suddenly sounded in the mountain. It sounded like an eagle's cry, and it also sounded like a phoenix's cry. The sound shook the 9 heavens and echoed through the layers of clouds. The great peng spread its green wings like clouds in the sky. It flapped with all its strength and soared thousands of miles into the sky. Kuan Peng. The golden eyes dragon was shocked. If there was a natural enemy of a true dragon, it would be the Kuan Peng. When the Kuan roamed the sea, it could eat dragons. When it transformed into a peng, it was like an eagle hunting for a snake. Once it was targeted, it would most likely die. Therefore, the dragon race had an unwritten rule that if they encountered a young Kuan Peng, they must kill it. But it was also because of this rule that the dragon race had a terrifying nightmare. There was a Kuan Peng that reached the peak of the demon race and became a great sage. It was called Chaotic Heaven, and specialized in patrolling the seas and hunting true dragons. Until the group of true dragons dove deep into the abyss. None of them dared to roam the sea or soar in the sky. Just now, he gave up and said, "If a dragon kills a Kuan Peng, then I will kill 500 true dragons." Even if the dragon race was good at reproduction and had a large population, they were still greatly weakened. Although he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, it was said that the great sage of Chaotic Heaven's wings were this green color. Seeing this scene, he couldn't help but hesitate. However, he changed his mind. That great sage of Chaotic Heaven had long been arrogant. She might be his successor, so he couldn't let her go. Want to leave? With a loud roar, the dragon soared thousands of miles and pounced on the Kuan Peng. Little and sat on the back of the Kuan Peng. The three-burial robe was in tatters, revealing the broken white bones underneath. However, on the white bones, there was an unprecedented luster. Although the samadhi flame of white bone in his eye sockets was weak, it became more and more condensed. A huge dragon head pounced on him. "It's my turn." Luo Ho Xiaoming took a step forward and stared at the golden-eyed dragon with his blood-red eyes. If the Kunpeng wanted to fly away, someone had to block the golden-eyed dragon from behind. Otherwise, it wouldn't be able to fly for long before it ran out of energy. He was the most suitable candidate, so little and asked him to preserve his strength. Although this was the best choice, it was also cruel and merciless. This was almost a fatal situation. Even if he was the divine son of Azura, he had no chance of winning against a demon emperor true dragon in this state. He didn't have any complaints about this. She had blocked the thunder sword of heavenly tribulation and almost died. What really annoyed him was that he had to hide behind a woman. Now that it was finally time for him to attack, he couldn't help but be eager. As for the consequences, there was no need to think too much. Just as she said, "If you can't block it, you die." It was just that simple. "If I die, ask him to help me kill this stinky earthworm." Luo Ho Xiaoming jumped with the wind and pounced on the golden-eyed dragon. "Bastard, you're courting death." The golden-eyed dragon spat out a dragon's breath, which was so cold that the air froze. Luo Ho Xiaoming was frozen in the air. In the golden-eyed dragon's eyes, he was already a dead man. It didn't even look at him and rammed into him. "Who did you say is a bastard?" The sky darkened. Luo Ho Xiaoming shattered the ice, and a terrifying black giant appeared in the endless darkness. He punched the dragon's head. The golden-eyed dragon was caught off guard. Its charge was stopped, and it rolled a few times in the air before it stopped. It looked at Luo Ho Xiaoming in disbelief. To be continued. Chapter 1411. The Abundance Department's courtyard was vast and majestic, but it wasn't a grotto heaven. Li Qingshan stepped onto the high steps, reported his name, and stated his purpose. The attendant in green glanced at him, and his smile faded slightly. He led him to a room and said, "Senior Brother Wang is busy. Please wait here for a while." Li Qingshan waited for half a day. He was the only one in the empty corridor. There wasn't any busy scene, but it seemed very deserted. However, he wasn't in a hurry. He first sorted out his thoughts for cultivation, and then took out the black rabbit from his sleeve to play with it. Unfortunately, the rabbit wasn't very cooperative. It even bit his hand hard when he angered it. Hiss! Li Qingshan took a deep breath. He saw that his finger was bleeding, and the wound was so deep that the bone could be seen. He couldn't help but be shocked. Not to mention how strong his physique was, he also had a powerful defense talent like bull demon forging its hide. He finally felt that something was wrong. What breed was this rabbit? Just as he was about to check it, a man's cold voice sounded from inside the door. "Is there anyone else outside?" Li Qingshan couldn't be bothered to argue with the rabbit. Anyway, he was going to let it go when he was outside the city, regardless of what breed it was. "Come in." Li Qingshan pushed the door open and entered. The large room was decorated elegantly. There was a scroll of calligraphy on the wall that said, "It's rare to be muddle-headed." A slightly plump man with a round face was sitting in front of the coffee table, sipping tea. He glanced sideways and said, "You are Li Qingshan?" "That's right." Li Qingshan was displeased. What has this damn fatty been busy with? Even if a cultivator's concept of time was different from that of a normal person, this wait was too long. The service attitude of the Abundance Department is incomparable to that of the Spirit Beast Garden and the Spirit Treasure Square. No wonder the senior brother who received me said that he wanted me to leave the bookmark here as a bribe. Impudent. I am your senior brother. Senior Brother Wang's face darkened. Li Qingshan raised his eyebrows. This damn fatty was just like him. He was just a disciple who had just entered the hall. What was he being so arrogant for? However, when he thought about how little and the others were in the Dragon Pool Immortal's Cave and how they were in dire need of an Immortal's Cave, he suppressed his anger and said, "Senior Martial Brother Wang, I'm here to claim my Immortal's Cave." Wait a moment. Can't you see I'm busy? Before he could finish, he was interrupted by the fat man. He leisurely took a sip of tea. Li Qingshan frowned. He was clearly looking for trouble, but he hadn't offended him. Even if it was for bribery. There was no need to be so disgusting. Yeah, I saw it. I'm so busy eating shit. Senior brother Wang spat out his tea and flew into a rage. What did you say? I told you to go eat shit. Li Qingshan cursed inwardly. He turned around and left, wondering if Wanxiang City had a complaint agency. How dare you insult senior brother to his face? I will teach you a lesson today. A cold smile appeared on senior brother Wang's face. Everything was going according to plan. Not long ago, Xin Yushu came to his door to plot with him. He wanted him to think of a way to make things difficult for Li Qingshan. As long as he angered him, a violent conflict would occur. This would attract the Law Division's patrol officer. This was the territory of the Heaven Mansion Department. Shen Yushu was an inner disciple and the head butler of the 100 Herb Garden. He had a lot of connections. As long as he could get Li Qingshan into the Law Division, he would have ways to deal with him. Senior brother Wang fiercely slapped Li Qingshan. He was very happy. Shen Yushu promised to give him a 10,000-year-old Lingji as a reward after the matter was settled. A new inner disciple. How dare you offend an inner disciple? You really don't know what's good for you. Even if there's no reward, I will still teach you the rules of seniority. When you enter the Law Division, you will suffer. Li Qingshan became more and more certain of his judgment. He even faintly guessed who was behind this. The only enemies he had in the Myriad Appearance sect were Lutian and Shen Yushu. At this moment, the bet with Lutian had just begun, so there was no need for him to do such a despicable thing. In that case, it was definitely that vile Shen Yushu. He didn't even turn around and casually grabbed the slapping white palm. He turned around and pressed down on his head. Clang. Before senior brother Wang could react, his head was pressed down on the tea table. The tea set on the table jumped around and the tea spilled all over his head and face. He was shocked. How was this possible? They were both nascent soul cultivators. How could there be such a big difference? Li Qingshan said, "Speak, who sent you to disgust me?" Senior brother Wang said, "Li Qingshan, you dare to offend your superior and attack your senior brother. I will report you to the Law Division." Li Qingshan sneered. "So that's what you're planning? Let me ask you again, who is it?" Senior brother Wang couldn't break free. He cursed loudly, wanting to alarm the people outside. Li Qingshan was already restless. At this time, anger rose in his heart and evil grew in his guts. He sneered, "You won't speak, right? Senior brother Wang, I will treat you to a cup of tea. Calm down." He grabbed a teacup and stuffed it into his mouth. Then a second and a third. After stuffing the teacup, there were also various tea sets, small pincers and so on. In the end, there was only a small teapot left on the tea table. He crushed it and stuffed it into his mouth. The black rabbit had jumped out of his sleeve at some point, its ruby-like eyes glistening with a red light as it watched this scene. A certain senior sister smiled. "Heh, so satisfying. But what does Yao Zhu see in such a tyrannical guy?" Li Qingshan said, "Senior brother Wang, now you're done, right? Should I say, if you don't speak, I will treat you to everything in this room." Senior brother Wang's mouth was full of blood. He stared at Li Qingshan with bloodshot eyes and said vaguely, "Li Qingshan, kill me if you have the guts. I will definitely kill you." "Good, you're unyielding. I admire you." Li Qingshan smiled and grabbed his head to the difficult character. It's rare to be muddle-headed. "Did you write it?" "Good writing, the taste must be good." He licked his lips. "You seem to taste okay. Although it's a little greasy, it's suitable to go with wine." A moment later, the green-clothed attendant who led the way for Li Qingshan hurried to the door. He knocked a few times and called for senior brother Wang, but there was no response. There was only a strange whining sound. He steeled his heart and pushed the door open. The scene in front of him shocked him. Li Qingshan held senior brother Wang's neck with one hand and the scroll with the other. He shoved the messy things in senior brother Wang's mouth down. Senior brother Wang was crying, his eyes filled with fear. He said, "Save me. Call someone." Li Qingshan glanced at him. The green-clothed attendant stepped back and sat on the ground. He said in a trembling voice, "Senior brother Li, senior brother Pai asked me to invite you." Li Qingshan was surprised. "Senior brother Pai? Pai Yangqiu?" Just. "Okay, I'll go now." Li Qingshan felt better after venting his anger. He took the black rabbit and left senior brother Wang. The green-clothed attendant looked at Li Qingshan in awe. "Senior brother Wang, Senior brother Pai asked you to get out of the Sky Mansion department. Don't embarrass yourself here." Senior brother Wang was currently lying on the ground, gasping for air. His expression changed drastically when he heard that. Being viciously taught a lesson by Li Qingshan was only a flesh wound. It only seemed horrible, and he could recover in a moment. Being chased out of the abundance department would truly be fatal. Chapter 14:12. At the highest level of the Treasury Department, there were pavilions, small bridges, and flowing water. It was like a huge garden. Pai Yangqiu sat alone among the flowers and trees, looking down at Wanxiang City leisurely. Li Qingshan went forward to greet him. Pai Yangqiu smiled and said, "Junior brother Li, long time no see." Li Qingshan was slightly surprised and cupped his hands. "I was angry and went a little overboard. Please forgive me, senior brother." Pai Yangqiu waved his hand. How can a man be humiliated by a villain? It's one thing for these fellows to take advantage of others, but now they've learned to betray others. They really don't deserve to be human. Li Qingshan had only met Pai Yangqiu once and did not expect him to be so reasonable. He thought to himself, as expected, it's easy to meet the king of hell but difficult to hide from the little ghosts. How was it? Did you enjoy your stay in 100 Herb Garden? Senior sister Wan is very good to me. Of course, if not, you wouldn't have encountered such trouble. Li Qingshan frowned. It was indeed that Xin Yushu. He's just a villain, not worth mentioning. I think your troubles are not over yet. Do you need my help? Li Qingshan asked curiously, "Why are you so concerned about me, senior brother? Do you know how many ascended disciples there are in Myriad Phenomenon sect? Many, a few thousand. Among them, you have the highest chance of becoming a successor disciple. Besides," Pai Yangqiu smiled, "I don't want these small matters to affect you and make Letian too proud." Li Qingshan said seriously, "That's true." Pai Yangqiu was stunned. "Huh? You're not humble at all." Li Qingshan smiled. "Since that's the case, why bother? I believe in senior brother's judgment. However, that Xin Yushu is from 100 Herb Garden after all, so you don't have to do anything for now." That's good too." Pai Yangqiu said with a smile. "My judgment is not bad. Lutian would not give 1,000 jade lots to just anyone. You've already met Spirit Venerable Gui Hai and chosen your heavenly book, right?" I've already started cultivating it. It's called the Heavenly Book of Freedom." Sigh. It was indeed the Heavenly Book. Pai Yangqiu clapped his hands and sighed. "The path of the great free sky devil?" His gaze turned serious. "Actually, I'm very curious. Why did the spirit supremacy summon you?" "Can I not answer?" Pai Yangqiu smiled and said, That's fine too. I'll pick a good cave residence for you. Or a very bad cave abode." I'm just kidding, but I'm really too curious. I simply can't figure it out. The spirit sovereign has always been engrossed in reading books and doesn't like worldly affairs. Even I, the successor disciple, am rarely summoned. He had never even been summoned before. You've just entered the sect, and your cultivation isn't that high. What's so special about you? Pai Yangqiu circled around Li Qingshan as if trying to see into his heart. The successor disciples valued Li Qingshan because of Li Qingshan's performance at the Essence Magnet Mountain, as well as his chance of becoming a successor disciple. However, this reason alone wasn't enough for the Spirit Sovereign to summon him. Even if he really became a successor disciple, the Spirit Sovereign might not like him. Li Qingshan thought, "Senior Brother Pai's interest in me probably has something to do with this." He thought for a moment. I can tell you, but the cave abode. Pai Yangqiu patted his chest and said, leave it to me. The black rabbit and the eldest senior sister in his sleeve also pricked up their ears. With the spirit sovereign's status in the myriad phenomenon sect, even if he was a shut-in, his every move was enough to attract the attention of the successor disciples. Li Qingshan said, the spirit sovereign wants me to leave the myriad phenomenon sect. Pai Yangqiu was stunned. The black rabbit blinked. The eldest senior sister slowly swallowed her wine, extremely curious. Why? I'm not sure. I think he thinks I'm a threat to the myriad phenomenon sect. Pai Yangqiu swallowed. A threat? He even suspected that Li Qingshan was lying. However, even a lie wasn't that ridiculous. It was because it was so ridiculous that it was inexplicably believable. However, the myriad phenomenon sect was a colossus. How could a mere nascent soul cultivator threaten it? However, he didn't dare to question the spirit sovereign's judgment. In the entire myriad phenomenon sect, apart from the mysterious Tianshu elder, no one would dare to claim to be first in terms of divination if he claimed to be second. Then how did you stay? Since it's a threat, it's more reassuring to stay under one's nose. Li Qingshan gave a vague answer. After all, the real content of the conversation was too shocking. If not for an absolutely rational existence like the spirit sovereign, it would have sounded like a threat to an outsider. If you don't let me stay, I'll definitely come back for revenge in the future. Pai Yangqiu heard the insincerity in his words and looked at Li Qingshan meaningfully. Whether he was seen as a threat by the spirit sovereign or persuaded to change the spirit sovereign's mind, both were inconceivable. What kind of background and future did he have? I understand. I know what to choose. Choose what? Pai Yangqiu smiled. Which side to bet on, of course. Your bet with Lu Tian has already spread among the core disciples. Lu Tian set up a new bet and dragged many people into it. I'm one of them. He patted Li Qingshan's shoulder with a serious expression. That's a huge bet. Don't disappoint me. Li Qingshan was speechless. He cursed Lu Tian in his heart. So I'm still that dark horse. Pai Yangqiu said, since he bet on you to win, it means he believes you can become a core disciple on par with us. How can he just treat you as a dark horse? Even a dark horse is better than an inferior horse that no one cares about, or even a stray dog by the side of the road. And don't worry, I'll help you. For example, a very good cave abode within the myriad phenomenon sect's laws. For example, the risks and opportunities in the heavenly book of freedom that you're cultivating now. Li Qingshan asked, what risks and opportunities? You're the first to cultivate the heavenly book of freedom, so there's no need to mention the risks. However, if you open up a dangerous path and record your cultivation experience and lessons to the heavens, you'll be able to obtain many contribution points and bookmarks. That's where the opportunities lie. Thank you for your guidance, senior brother. Li Qingshan came to a realization. To the myriad phenomena sect and spirit venerable C return, he was basically the first test subject of this heavenly writing. He possessed very high research value. Perhaps they would even organize the heavenly writing of freedom according to the results of their experiments, and future cultivators could learn from him. Perhaps they would even specially spend a bookmark to purchase the learning materials. It seemed like being a dark horse was not without its benefits, but the problem was, senior brother, are there many who bet on me losing? What do you think? Pai Yangqiu smiled. Only a lunatic would bet on him winning if they did not obtain first-hand materials. Even if they had seen Li Qingshan's performance in the Essence Magnet Mountain with their own eyes, they would only dare to place a bet after confirming it repeatedly. Li Qingshan asked again, then, will they deal with me like Shinyushu? Pai Yangqiu said seriously, Junior brother Li, what kind of people do you think we true disciples are? Just when Li Qingshan stopped worrying, he heard him continue. Even 100 Shinyushu wouldn't be a match for you if any of the direct disciples wanted to deal with you, let alone a group of direct disciples. Li Qingshan felt a toothache. Pai Yangqiu smiled. But don't be afraid. I'll protect you. Li Qingshan said, I'm afraid you won't be able to fight against so many. Pai Yangqiu hugged Li Qingshan's shoulder affectionately. Don't worry. They think you'll definitely lose and won't be in a hurry to make a move. We'll win by surprise. Li Qingshan was even more speechless. It was unreliable to expect the enemy to be careless. Senior brother, something happened. At that moment, an inner disciple rushed over. He looked at Li Qingshan in surprise before bowing to Pai Yangqiu. What happened? Senior Ao Xian broke into the dragon pool cavern. Li Qingshan's expression changed and his pupils shrank. Could it be that what he feared was coming true? Pai Yangqiu glanced at Li Qingshan, but he did not seem surprised at all. Sure enough, that wretched dragon can't wait any longer. Hee, if our first senior brother Lin still doesn't return, his Xianming dwelling will belong to the Myriad Phenomena sect. Senior brother Lin failed? If reincarnation was so easy, the world would be full of immortals. The heavenly Tao has its own tribulations to break this wishful thinking. Pai Yangqiu seemed to be disdainful, but also seemed to be sighing. Li Qingshan had already regained his composure, and was even calmer than usual. He asked, Senior brother Pai, if the Xianming cavern is taken back, can I buy it? Chapter 1413. You want to buy the Xianming cave mansion? Pai Yangqiu raised his eyebrows and looked at Li Qingshan with interest. That sounds like a good cave mansion. Li Qingshan also smiled. Pai Yangqiu said with a smile that was not a smile. Yes, how can eldest Shixiang's cave mansion not be good? Not only is the spiritual energy rich and the scenery is magnificent, it also comes with eldest Shixiang's life savings and a true dragon mount. Li Qingshan said, that would probably require a lot of bookmarks. No, this cave mansion is not only beautiful but also cheap. Then why? Pai Yangqiu's smile disappeared. Do you want to slay a dragon? Li Qingshan shrugged his shoulders and did not answer. This Xianming cave mansion was like a dragon's nest in a knight's novel, but his goal was not the princess or treasure. He silently said in his heart, if you dare to hurt even a hair on them, I will definitely kill you. Pai Yangqiu said, what a young generation full of vigor, it makes me feel that time is tight and I need to cultivate more. Let's not talk nonsense, here are a few suitable cave mansions, you can choose one. Senior Shixiang, please exchange it for bookmarks first. Li Qingshan thought about it. If the situation changed, he must get the right to slay a dragon. Pai Yangqiu was surprised. What? You really want to buy the Xianming cave mansion? Although it is cheap, it is not something you can afford now. Li Qingshan thought about it and a light flashed in his mind. I can pay in installments. Installments? Pai Yangqiu frowned and immediately understood the meaning of this word. He looked at Li Qingshan with a strange expression. Does the Sky Mansion department not have this service? I can make a down payment and then pay the debt monthly or annually, for example, 50 years. If I pay the debt, not only will the Sky Mansion department sell the cave mansion, but they will also get a sum of interest. If I can't pay the debt, they can take the cave mansion back. Anyway, the cave mansion can't run away, it is a sure profit. Pai Yangqiu pinched his chin and thought, very interesting idea, it reminds me of Lutian. Did you think of this? In his opinion, Li Qingshan still belonged to the school of battle, which was courageous and diligent, just like the two fake first senior brothers and first senior sisters. Although they were hard and easy to break, they had to face a tribulation that could truly break them. They would be able to break through everything and move forward bravely. They really didn't seem like people who could come up with such an idea. Li Qingshan continued, if it is popularized, many cultivators will be able to afford cave abodes, and cave abodes will become even more in demand. If the price continues to rise, you can turn them all into house slaves, oh no, mansion slaves. Who would dare to disobey the orders of the Department of Abundance? Pai Yangqiu's eyes lit up. Slave, that's too unpleasant to hear. But I like the last part. If it was just you, the Sanctum Sanctorum could still handle it. If he wanted to promote it to the entire Myriad Nature sect, it was necessary to have a large number of bookmarks as a foundation. It's a pity that the financial power of the myriad nature sect isn't in my hands, and I need Letion's cooperation. Why don't we go and meet him together? Li Qingshan thought. No wonder Letion could lend me 1,000 blue jade bookmarks and set up a 30-year bet. But the myriad nature sect unexpectedly gave the financial power to a gambler. It's crazy. Many inherited disciples also thought so, but this was the result of the spiritual venerable's deduction. I think it's because for people like us, bookmarks are just a symbol of resources, and resources are just tools for cultivation. Only Letion would be so interested in accumulating bookmarks. Li Qingshan suddenly had a feeling that this sentence made sense. Because it was very common for ordinary people to pursue wealth, and it was very rare for cultivators at this level, as long as they could get enough resources for their cultivation. If Letion wasn't addicted to gambling, he wouldn't be interested in doing this. But I'm not a noble inherited disciple like you. The more resources I have, the better. The mysterious underworld cave is a great opportunity. But senior brother Pai, I'm not friends with Letion. Pai Yangqiu was surprised. I've only met one disciple who can say this so calmly. But don't worry, he respects his gambling friends more than his friends. If it's you, he will definitely give you the bookmarks. But do you know what his second hobby is? Loan sharks. Li Qingshan was speechless. The fact that the owner of a casino liked to loan sharks was so reasonable that he didn't know what to say. In the last bet, you got 1,000 bookmarks for nothing. He must be very unhappy. Now that the opportunity is here, he won't let it go. Besides, this is another crazy bet. Really? Pai Yangqiu looked at Li Qingshan with a, I don't know what to say about you expression, and said sincerely, Junior brother, you probably won't get anything in the mysterious underworld cave. Senior brother Pai, then why do you want me to gamble? Didn't you say you would protect me? If you can take down the mysterious underworld cave, your chances of winning the bet with Letion will greatly increase, which also means my chances of winning will greatly increase. If you can't, it'll just be a terrible debt. Pai Yangqiu smiled. Don't worry, I'll help you push this debt to 30 years later. Li Qingshan understood, if he couldn't take down the mysterious underworld cave, even if he became a legacy disciple 30 years later, he would still have to pay Letion a large number of bookmarks, maybe even more than 2,000. So Letion would very likely accept this proposal. Pai Yangqiu, on the other hand, would definitely make a profit. Anyway, he couldn't afford the mortgage and the cave still had to be taken back, so it didn't hurt him at all. However, it would increase his chances of winning in the bet with the other legacy disciples. Junior brother Li, aren't you angry? Pai Yangqiu asked. It was hard for him to say it so directly. Senior brother Pai, why would I be angry? 30 years later hee. Loan sharks hee. Pai Yangqiu praised. Good, I like this personality. Calling me senior brother Pai is too distant. Just call me from now on. The corner of Li Qingshan's eye twitched. Pet, Pai. Pai Yangqiu laughed. I'm just joking. He grabbed Li Qingshan's shoulder, turned around, and arrived at the archway of Chaotic Place. All that was left was the disciple who had come to report his work. He muttered to himself, just what is this Li Qingshan's background? Ao Xian slowly turned around, staring at Luo Ho Xiaoming in the endless darkness. Rahu's celestial race? Who are you? Luo Ho Xiaoming said proudly, you don't deserve to know my name. Good, very good. I haven't felt such pain in a long time. I'll let you know, this is not the Azura realm. Ao Xian's body shrunk, turning into a handsome man with golden eyes, black clothes, and a dignified appearance. He gently touched his cheek, and two dazzling golden lights shot out from his eyes, staring at Luo Ho Xiaoming's endless dark eyes. Light and shadow faced each other, light and dark intertwined, the air twisted and exploded, creating a series of explosions, and strong winds surged like waves. Luo Ho Xiaoming's long hair fluttered in the wind, his hands spread out into the endless darkness. Almost at the same time, the Golden Eyes dragon broke through the air in a flash, dragging a golden light, and punched. Gu Yenying unfurled her wings and soared through the endless sky and land of the human realm. She was no longer constrained by the narrowness of the 9 provinces. The freedom to her heart's content overwhelmed all fear and worry. Everyone gazed at her figure from afar. Suddenly, she looked back, only to see darkness envelop their figures at the same time. An indescribable pride rushed out of her heart. "Evil dragon, if you dare to kill him, I will kill 500 true dragons, including you." This sentence was like a sharp arrow, piercing through the endless void and even the darkness, shooting into Ao Xian's consciousness, and his expression changed slightly. Little and blinked and looked at Gu Yenying strangely. Gu Yenying blushed slightly and smiled. "Why, only men like them are allowed to act like heroes, but I'm not allowed to boast?" Little said, "Yes." Gu Yenying looked at the sky, and no longer looked back. Since he was the Kunpeng, there was no need for Qing Shan to do anything. After some time, several golden lights sliced through the darkness, but they were torn apart by the golden dragon claws, falling from the sky, and merged into the darkness. Ao Xian stood under the starry sky. His black clothes were slightly damaged, and he spat out a dragon tooth, holding it tightly in his hand, and the other turned into a ferocious dragon claw, grabbing Luo Ho Xiaoming. He looked at the direction where the Kunping disappeared for a long time, thinking about something, and flew down after a while. Boom! The stone door was broken into pieces, and Ao Xian retracted his fist, breaking into the dragon pool cave, and silently patrolling the area. There was no one inside. The altar had been destroyed by the divine punishment, and there was no sign of the climbing vine. Why would a Rahugod clan appear in the 9 states? And with the inheritor of the great sage of chaotic heavens, and the exquisite white bones on the back of the Kunping, could it be the inheritor of the white bone bodhisattva? All these clues contained a message that made him shudder. Could it be that a great change was about to happen again? No, it can't be. The great sages were all suppressed. He did not want to think anymore, and looked at the Rahu in his hand, feeling that it was a bit tricky. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.